2 o'clock. It's 2 o'clock when I restate it. I did press it. Oh, okay.
Okay, roll call.
All right, Melton. Palermo.
Here.
Rowe.
Here.
Bagley.
Here.
Harding. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. President.
Here. Please stand for the pledge, and I'll provide the opening remarks. I'll just give a short reflection today before we start. I see we have Vira Jeffrey with us today, our new Chamber of Commerce president. We want to welcome her to the City Council chambers for her first time and look forward to working with her. In that spirit, I want to offer a reflection about the last couple of weeks that I was thinking to myself that any chamber president would appreciate, and mayor and city council too, which is we all work hard together to provide a great place for our folks to live and grow up in and cultivate our future workforce, in particular our young professionals and our young people. In the last 2 weeks, I think, have been a great example of some progress we're making in that respect. I'll just give a few examples on the top of my head, but we had a really great Pride Parade and Festival downtown, the largest attended ever in Omaha. We had the Memorial Park fireworks and show with headlining national acts and an estimated 25,000 people there. Police department estimate was 25,000.
No, you gotta
but I'll go with 50 if you want. I looked like it from where we were sitting. And then certainly we're talking about the Maha Festival in a little bit and the Outlandia Festival. Those are big parts of what we're trying to accomplish here. We had the Festival Italiana and Little Bohemia events. All great things happening. I was at the CHI Health Center on Saturday night for the Greta Van Fleet show. Great show, first of all, but second of all, what was really neat about it is thousands of young professionals, 20-somethings, having a great time. I thought to myself, that's exactly why we built that building for our future. So I just wanted to offer those insights over the last couple of weeks in terms of the progress we're making in that regard. And the very next event you can come to and support in this respect is Benson Days on Saturday. So we'll see you there. Thank you.
An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of legislative chambers.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Omaha City Council. We appreciate having you here today. We look forward to hearing your testimony on our many items. We do have two presentations first, and then we'll recognize the mayor for the 2023 budget presentation. And the first proclamation we have is to honor Franklin Thompson for his many years of service to the city of Omaha. That'll be read by council members Harding and Melton. And then if council members want to offer any insights, they're welcome to do so after that. The floor is yours. And Mr. Thompson, please come to the podium.
Franklin, I'll start out by saying that the good thing is that podium blocks most of your body for any arrows that might get thrown at you from any of us. So thanks for your service. All right, Councilmember Melton and I will read the proclamation. I'll start out. Whereas Dr. Franklin Thompson represented Omaha City Council District 6 for 16 years from 2001 through 2017, and served as Vice President of the City Council from 2001 through 2003, and again from 2009 to 2011, and served on the Police and Fire Pension Board from 2013 through 2017. And whereas Dr. Thompson joined the University of Nebraska Omaha faculty in 1993 as a tenured associate professor in the College of Education, teaching multicultural education and race relation courses for 27 years, having previously taught social studies at Burke High School, served as a counselor at Blackburn High School, and held the position of Director of Diversity at Creighton Prep High School. And whereas Dr. Thompson was appointed the Director of Human Rights and Relations Department in 2017 by Mayor Stothert, where he oversaw the successful implementation of the City of Omaha's Economic Equity and Inclusion Plan, allowing the city to address the concentration of unemployment and poverty in economically distressed census tracts, work towards economic prosperity via expanded opportunities for small and emerging businesses, improve workforce development through economic inclusion opportunities, and provide opportunities for youth engagement. And
whereas Dr. Thompson created the City of Omaha Martin Luther King Jr. Living the Dream original social justice short essay, poetry, music, and dance competition in 2019. And I was pleased to be a judge for 2 of those years. Encouraging youth to adopt the principles of Martin Luther King Jr. and other social and human rights warriors, and to create original writing and other artistic compositions by students. And whereas, under Dr. Thompson's leadership, the Civil Rights Investigation Team successfully implemented new workplace training programs for sexual harassment, implicit bias, and cultural awareness, and worked with the Equal Justice Initiative and the Omaha Community for Racial Justice and Reconciliation to place historical markers honoring victims of racial violence in Omaha. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Omaha officially designates Friday, July 29th, 2022, as Dr. Franklin Thompson Day in Omaha, Nebraska. In witness whereof, we have set our hands and caused the official seal of the City of Omaha to be affixed on this 26th day of July, 2022. Thank you, Dr. Thompson.
And frankly, while they're delivering that to you, I want to say a few things as well, and then we'll give you the opportunity to say some words if you'd like.
Yes.
First of all, I want to say congratulations on your retirement. And I would say I'm also honored to recognize you for your many years of service to the City of Omaha. 16 years on the City Council is a long time to be doing this right, and a lot of time and dedication away from your family to dedicate to the citizens of Omaha. I know we can relate to all that, all of us, and so we appreciate all you did in that respect. I think I worked with you during that entire 16 years, either in the mayor's office or as a peer on the City Council.
Yes.
And although we didn't always agree, I know that it always came from a good place. You're always reflective and thoughtful about all that you did, and I always appreciated that about you. And similar to Ms. Melton's remarks, that's one of the things I'll always remember about you too, was the MLK Award event that you sponsored now as a director and really took to the next level, because I really think that was when you were in your element, not only talking about civil rights, but also engaging our young people.
Yes.
And our students. Obviously, as a professor, that's a big part of your life. And it was certainly evident those days, and in that event, how well you did that, and I was proud to participate as a judge as well. So I want to wish you and your family a great retirement. I know you're still working at UNO. I'm sure we'll still see you, and I appreciate all you've done for the city.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate this honor. And first of all, I want to say I want to thank the mayor for her job that she's done. I personally feel the best mayor that Omaha's had in modern times. But I also want to thank each one of you on the council. And you are correct, Pete. We were able to get a lot done. Even when we disagreed, we learned how to disagree without being disagreeable. And I appreciate that about you too. Every person on this council, I haven't worked extensively with you, but I have worked with you, and all of you have shown me nothing but grace and the ability to get along, and I appreciate that. I'm going to definitely miss some of my corner mates over in the corner there where I used to sit. You used to be in that corner too. And it was a good thing to serve one of the best cities in the whole United States of America. Being an Air Force brat, I moved around quite a bit, and so I've seen many different scenarios, some all white, some all black, some poor, some middle class. When I was young, I hated it, but now that I've grown up, I see the benefit from having moved so much and seen a lot of places, but Omaha is one of the best places I've ever been, and it's a great place to serve, and I really appreciate my time working for the city. It's been really good, serving good people, and I believe that the old song that says, "There's no place like Nebraska," I believe that. And I believe Omaha is the best representative of Nebraska. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to not only grow personally, but also professionally. I'll always appreciate and remember you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Don't leave the podium yet. My light's on.
Miss Melton, you're recognized. Not get away that easy, huh?
Thank you, President. Dr. Thompson, I just want to say, when I started this job in 2013, and I think as everybody on here, when they first start, you kind of come in and you don't know what to expect, and you're not sure what you're doing, and you don't know what the zoning laws are and half of what you're voting on. So I'd read the agenda, and you were so gracious. You were the first person that I went to that helped me understand. And I remember every Tuesday morning, I think for like a year, I was in your office going, okay, number 13, what does that mean? And what happens if we do that? And the one thing you always said to me, where I would say, well, I feel bad about this, or I feel bad about that if I do one thing or the other. And you said, well, having a heart is good. You can vote with your heart, but you have to vote with your heart and your mind. And whenever I asked you a question, you always responded to me with another question that I needed to answer, and then that would give me my answer. You made me think. And the dialogue that I had with you, you helped me grow, you helped me learn, you helped educate me in not just the city things and things about our city, but as a person, as somebody who represents their district well and how to represent your constituents. And I've considered you a mentor since 2013. And I hope now that maybe you have a little extra time on your hands, you'll continue to fill that role. And hopefully Bev doesn't get sick of me if I can come over and knock on your door and sit on your back porch and discuss things. And the one thing we didn't mention is your beautiful singing voice and the albums that you've created too, because those are absolutely fabulous. If any of you can get any of Dr. Thompson's songs, he has an amazing voice. And so you've done so much for people, not just in your district when you were on the council, but now for the entire city. And I have to say, I look forward to, I think, or I know, you have written a book in your free time as well.
Yes.
That I look forward to having a book signing party for you so that everybody in this city and beyond can read, because it's very thought-provoking, just as you have always been. And I think everybody will be better off for contemplating some of the topics that you cover in that book. So I would say I'm going to miss you, but I hope that I'm not going to miss you, that I'm still going to continue to see you, talk to you, and share thoughts and ideas with you, even after your retirement. But you've been a great leader for our city, and I just want to thank you for all the years of service that you've dedicated to us.
I always remember my friends, and you are one, and I'll always be there for you. And thank you for mentioning the autobiography. And for the general population, I have a passion for children,
Yes.
especially for those who are quote unquote called throwaway children, throwaway kids. And in this society where it's so easy to go to drugs, to go to violence, to drop out, to even take a life, take a gun and go to a school and shoot up a school. There's more that we have to do to reach those kids, and that's the purpose of the autobiography. Serves two purposes. It serves my story, but it's also a roadmap for the so-called throwaway kids.
And I think it's something that will serve us now and serve future generations in the future. So thank you for reducing it to a book that future generations can continue to read and learn from.
Thank you,
Dr. Thompson.
Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilmember Melton mentioned your ability to sing. I was going to ask you if you were going to sing your way off the podium when you're done. And if you do, that'd be perfectly fine, but just keep it to a couple of short bars if you wouldn't mind. But Franklin, I want to thank you too. Councilmember Melton mentioned you being a mentor, and I am sitting in the representing the district that you used to represent. And those are big shoes to fill, and you were always there to answer questions for me, both when I was on the private sector side as well as when I was coming into this position. You were always there for good advice, for good counsel, always had that open door policy. I appreciated you being willing to listen to my questions and my thoughts, and appreciated your feedback. I too will miss those, as many of the rest of us will, but I know that you will not be invisible in Omaha, and we're grateful for your service. You were certainly, I think, a trailblazer in many respects in your time on the council, and I think Omaha has been well served because of you. So thank you for your service, and look forward to seeing you around.
And thank you for being a good role model, especially one that really does well with detail and taking care of business. People can learn a lot from you.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe, you're recognized.
I too want to thank you, Dr. Thompson, for your service. Your fingerprints are all over the city of Omaha, and I just want to congratulate you on your retirement. I have a feeling that you're probably not done getting your fingers and hands into things across the city, and we look forward to the way that you'll serve and really enhance the lives of so many people in Omaha. And we just thank you and appreciate all that you've done.
Thank you.
Mr. Bakley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Dr. Thompson, I just want to wish you Godspeed and a happy, long, healthy retirement. And I appreciate the year that I've been on the council. You've been nothing but gracious and a good, honorable public servant. And of note, you're a constituent of mine. So I look forward to hearing from you on any issues I can help you with as your council.
You bet.
Now you got to change your cell phone.
That's an open invitation, right?
Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Dr. Thompson, hats off. Job well done. Thank you.
Bless you.
Mr. Palermo.
Mr. President. Last but not least, right, unless anybody else wants to say something else, I will say we never actually served on the council together, but we certainly, you and I, worked for the better of the city of Omaha together, and it's been an honor doing that. Every time I would see you in the hallway or wherever it was, you always had a smile on your face, and you were always ready to go to work for the people, and that I thank you for. I will say, as you've heard everybody speak, you never missed an opportunity except for today. If you look around the room, there's a lot of people, and I know they have money in their pocket, and I know you have that CD that you would like to sell, and you could have had a desk out front and selling them CDs, and you missed that opportunity. But you may be leaving the city, but we know you're not going away. Thank you for all you've done. Thank you.
Those are kind words coming from an SOB, South Omaha boy.
As I could put it. Yes.
Okay, last chance. Are we going to get a few bars out of you or not?
Today is a little rough, but perhaps on Friday.
All right.
Maybe on Friday.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next presentation will be on behalf of the Maha Music Festival. I think we have some representatives here if you want to come up. And we'll have Councilman Bagley read a proclamation for your event coming up.
Thanks, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Rachel and Emily. Thanks for being here today. And I don't know if people know this, but Council President Fesserson is a great drummer and music lover, so appropriate to be here reading this today. Whereas founded in 2009 as Maha Music Festival, and since inaugural concert on the riverfront has welcomed more than 100 music acts, dozens of speakers and attendees from all 50 states, the city of Omaha is proud to have a large-scale music festival in our community. And whereas Nebraska is home to thousands of working musicians, artists, chefs, comedians, poets, and other creatives, Maha will continue to evolve into an annual collection of experience that reflect the diverse culture aspects of the community and region, with the festival being instrumental in celebrating creativity by providing a platform of regional and national significance and scope. And whereas this will be the first Maha Festival since before the pandemic to take place over 2 days, and Omahans take great pride in supporting this community event through widespread volunteerism. And whereas Maha Music Festival attracts thousands of visitors to the city of Omaha each year, and Maha Festival Days will broaden awareness of the 1,000 individuals who come together for the greater good of our community and to create the festival. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Omaha officially designates July 29th and 30th, 2022, Maha Music Days in Omaha, Nebraska. In witness whereof, we have set our hands and caused the official seal of the City of Omaha to be affixed on this 26th day of July, 2022.
And if you'd like a minute to talk about the event, you're welcome to do that right now.
Thank you very much, City Council members, and thank you, Mayor, for having us here today. My name is Rachel Grace. I am the Executive Director of Communications and Strategy at Maha. Here we have Emily Cox, Executive Director of Operations and Programming. We also have company in the crowd here with TJ Twitt, our Board President, and Sarah Baker Hansen, our Board Secretary. This moment, I think, has been something like 14 years in the making since Maha was founded as a nonprofit way back in 2008 as an event-based arts and culture nonprofit. The goal originally was to bring a world-class, really large-scale music festival to our city to help put Omaha on the map for people, especially among young professionals and indie music fans nationwide, and have this be the type of place that the 20-somethings come and they look around and they go, you know what, I think I could live here. Maha was also created to be a platform for our own creative community to signal to the rest of the world the great cultural vibrancy that's happening inside of it, and it has really grown into that. Music, visual arts, and comedy, all of those things converge at Maha this weekend. Our organization is really, really proud to contribute to all of that, but it's really not just us here at all. There are so many people who go into making this event happen. And it's a very broad group of people. Our philanthropic supporters, our dozens of individual donors. There are 36 companies, many of them based in Omaha, like Union Pacific, along with global companies like LinkedIn, who are supporters of Maha Festival. There will be 18 different nonprofits on site this weekend, each of them bringing their helpers to create interactive activities. Local food and makers and artisans will be on hand, but the most impressive thing I think is mentioned in the proclamation, and that is that 1,000 people donate their time, their talent, their energy, their passion to coming together to make this happen. It's really unlike anything else I've ever seen. And they do it because they're part of something bigger. They don't just do it for the free ticket, although I'm sure that helps too. They do it because they like to create something big in Omaha and to help make an impact here on our city. We're really eager to share our future plans with you once they're ready. We will be sending out our strategic planning and our impact report later this year. And as you know, the pandemic has presented lots of challenges for events, but it will all be so very worth it when we all come together this weekend to celebrate our city and the great people in it. Thank you so much to the City of Omaha, to everyone here for making this such a welcoming place for events like Maha Festival. And we hope to see you all there.
Well said, thank you. We'll see you there.
Thank you.
And I happen to know your board chair is a pretty good guitar player as well. All right, Madam Clerk.
Item 6, Mayor Stothert will present the 2023 recommended budget.
Welcome, Mayor. The floor is yours. As the agenda notes, the Budget and Capital Improvement Program public hearing will be held on August 16th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. in these chambers, and we welcome folks to come and give us your opinions about the city budget, and the presentation we'll now hear. Welcome, Mayor.
Good afternoon, everybody. Council President Festerson, council members, and citizens of Omaha. I am pleased to present our 2023 recommended budget today. Omaha has made great progress recovering from the economic and health challenges created by the pandemic. Our local economy is strong. Unemployment is extremely low. City revenues are meeting projections, and there is optimism in the direction of our city. Our budget funds these services, programs, and personnel to make us even stronger. We propose a general fund budget for 2023 of $474 million, and that is a 3.9% increase compared to this year. The increase is consistent with our previous annual budgets. The recommended property tax rate for next year will remain unchanged from this year. Since I have been mayor, we have reduced the property tax rate 3 times, including the 2% reduction that we implemented this year. And once again, we will not implement the property tax rate increase approved by the voters in 2020 to fund our street preservation program. With good cash management and existing bond capacity, we are funding this vital program without additional tax revenue by increasing taxes. And we are now in our 3rd year of doubling road repair and maintenance. A voter-approved tax increase that has not been implemented is not a tax cut. However, not implementing it again speaks very well for our conservative budgeting approach and strong fiscal management. We expect sales tax revenue to increase 5.5% next year compared to the 2021 actual. And we project nearly $40 million in restaurant tax revenue, signaling a turnaround for the restaurant industry. We ended 2021 with an unspent balance of $8 million. Our charter requires us to hold that money for 2 years, or in 2023, so that the money is also included in this budget. As we face some economic uncertainty nationally, I am pleased that we have consistently increased our cash reserves. At the end of last year, our cash reserve fund balance was nearly $28 million, compared to just $5 million when I took office in 2013. The contingent liability fund balance is now over $25 million, and it was well under $3 million in that same time period. These are our rainy day funds, and I am watching the economic forecast, as I'm sure you are all too. One of the lessons the pandemic has prepared us for is the need to be prepared financially for unpreventable emergencies. Like your own household budget, we will adjust if necessary if inflation impacts our city spending. We have already adjusted 2023 for the loss of approximately $4 million following the state audit that revealed that the Douglas County Treasurer incorrectly distributed payments to local taxing entities based on a new interpretation of the state law. Some metro school districts were underpaid, while others, like the city of Omaha, were overpaid. The $4 million loss of revenue will not affect city operations or our tax levy. So let me now touch on a few specifics of 2023 department budget highlights. Funding and staffing for our police and fire department remains our top priority. We recommend a budget of $178.4 million for the Omaha Police Department, and that is a 4.6% increase over this year. Our authorized sworn count will remain at 906 officers. As you know, many cities face recruitment challenges, and Omaha is included in that. Currently, we have 846 officers. The chief and I believe that this gap will continue to close with strong recruitment, and that's what we are doing. A class training at the Academy now will graduate in September, and 2 additional recruit classes for police will begin later this year. We will also add 8 civilian employees, in part to cover responsibilities that were previously assigned to sworn officers. Our co-responder program continues to transform from private foundation funds to the Omaha Police budget. This is increasingly beneficial to have mental health co-responders involved when officers are assisting persons in mental health crisis or facing situations that require threat assessment or de-escalation. We have budgeted for the purchase and replacement of frontline cruisers and new equipment required to communicate with Douglas County 911 for emergency dispatch. For the fire department, we propose a general fund increase of 4% and up to $125.5 million. To put this in perspective, in 2013, the Omaha Fire Department's budget was less than $80 million. As our city grows, calls for emergency services increase. We must have trained personnel and up-to-date safe apparatus to provide the best fire and emergency medical response possible. This budget anticipates continued growth and demand for emergency services. We will add 17 more firefighters in 2023 for a total of 681 sworn. The additional staff will be funded with a federal SAFER grant, and we are confident that we will receive that award. We will place new apparatus in high call areas. Engine 2 will be added to serve our growing urban core. Engine 2 was removed from service more than a decade ago from a previous administration. It will be dispatched from Central Station at 15th and Jackson. We are also adding a new medic unit to our fleet. Medic 25 will respond to calls from the station at 2304 Fontenelle Boulevard beginning this fall. Many of you attended the opening of our new Fire Station 31 at 34th and Q Street just 2 weeks ago. In 2023, we plan to acquire land and to begin to design our next new fire station in the 168th and Fort area. The Omaha Public Library budget will significantly increase next year, up 10% to $19.3 million. Our public libraries are tremendous community assets, offering access to ideas, technology, and learning. Our agreement with Community Information Trust, or CIT, that you will vote on today, the City Council will vote on today, provides funding of $20 million for the proposed new Central Library at 72nd and Dodge, with the remainder of more than $100 million coming from private donors. In 2023, we will add 8 positions, this is for library, increase wages for our part-time staff, and buy new material for collection, especially for our new downtown branch. The increase also funds the leases for 14th and Jones Branch and the temporary administration building at 84th and Frederick. The changes underway, and with your support, will create and maintain a world-class library system. The planning department will focus on technology to improve customer service, increase the number of rental property inspections to approximately 2,500, and add a new housing manager to oversee our affordable housing action plan. The demo budget is $800,000 to remove unsafe properties from neighborhoods. And we are hopeful that Omaha will be selected this fall to receive a $50 million Choice Neighborhood Implementation Grant to redevelop the Indian Hills Southside Terrace neighborhood in South Omaha. The grant will allow us to address a wide range of community needs, such as high-quality, affordable housing, access to health and wellness services and programs, and strong educational systems for children and adults. Management of our street preservation program is one of the major responsibilities of our Public Works Department. Next year, we plan $18 million in resurfacing projects, and that is up 6%. We recommend the addition of 25 employees across 8 Public Works divisions, many to address safety, inspection, engineering, and implementation of Vision Zero. We're having success addressing a shortage of equipment operators on our street maintenance division. As of today, we only have 9 vacancies for the automotive equipment operator position, down from a high of more than 50 last year, as a result of job fairs and increased competitive salary for our CDL drivers. The Public Works 2023 operating budget, including all local, state, and federal funding sources, is $203 million, and that is up 12.5%. Human Resources will add 2 employees next year to coordinate pension-related activities and to improve services to employees and retirees on health insurance coverage and benefits. Our health care costs for our employees and retirees will increase 5.5% next year, a larger increase than the general fund budget itself. Our per person health care expenses for most of our full-time staff is $17,511 per person per year, and the city pays for that. However, the fire trust, the healthcare plan for most fire department personnel is 32% higher, or $23,104 per employee. That is something that we need to address while maintaining strong coverage that our employees value. We have completed a salary study, a citywide salary study, comparing our city wages to similar positions and wages here in the greater Omaha metro area. The results showed that we needed to increase salary for many of our city positions to recruit and retain employees. This impacts our budget, but allows us to compete better in our labor market. The Parks Department is one that has certainly experienced the need for more competitive salaries. This year, a shortage of lifeguards required a staggering schedule for our pools, a difficult decision, but one that we had to make to ensure safety. So the Parks budget will include higher wages for our seasonal employees, including lifeguards and staff, and we are actually recruiting lifeguards for next year now to be better prepared. Next year, we will also begin significant improvements at 10 city parks with our ARPA funding. Those projects are identified in our capital improvement plan, which I will address in just a few minutes. The Omaha Convention and Visitors Bureau will add 3 positions next year, anticipating a return to strong event and convention business. We expect the remarkable riverfront parks that they will create an even bigger draw for our out-of-town guests. The Visit Omaha staff will move to a new office space at Midtown Crossing, resulting in a cost savings for office space of around 50%. And we will again provide important community service funding, approximately $2.5 million, to Omaha's nonprofits that support our goals. In 2023, we will expand our Way to Work program in partnership with the Salvation Army. Way to Work is a readiness program that provides employment, training, and services to persons that are experiencing homelessness. We started this program in 2019, offering a good job and a good wage and tools for long-term success and the additional resources that the Salvation Army trained to provide. Way to Work expands our commitment to workforce development and training and caring for those who are experiencing homelessness. We will also create a new position to implement a comprehensive strategy to prevent homelessness. There is a great need to coordinate existing programs and develop new programs. The Homeless Service Coordinator will be a member of the Mayor's office, and they will report to me. I would also like to update you on our progress managing and allocating federal COVID relief funds. We just learned that we will receive another $1.8 million in assistance for rental assistance, residential rental assistance. Housing is a basic need, and we have aggressively pursued funds to provide resources for our citizens who need assistance. As of today, we have received over $100 million, and we have distributed more than $69 million for rental assistance. We have helped more than 15,000 households and prevented many from being evicted from their homes. This week, we will file our 2022 ARPA Recovery Plan. ARPA, or the American Rescue Plan Act, funds are intended to replace, first and foremost, city revenue losses, support community programs to respond to COVID impact, and also to promote economic recovery. We have received $112.5 million, and we have already committed approximately 92% of those funds. The budget document that you will be receiving today includes a summary of the ARPA expenses and programs. Again, the largest amount, $40 million, has been reserved for cities' lost revenue. We allocated $4.5 million, and this is ARPA money, to our hotel stimulus program. You all approved that program in May, and we are supporting 46 hotels with this funding. The hospitality industry, especially lodging, experienced devastating business losses during COVID. We also enlisted the help of the United Way of the Midlands and the Omaha Community Foundation to manage $15 million allocated for community grants. More than 50 nonprofit agencies are receiving funding to make immediate and direct impact on the citizens of Omaha. $20 million has been directed towards affordable housing. Along with our nonprofit partner, Front Porch Investments, we will create and preserve more affordable housing in our city. Our $20 million that the city is providing will be matched by Front Porch, another $20 million, through philanthropic donations. The city is also going to apply for an additional $20 million from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, which makes Affordable Housing Initiative, our Affordable Housing Initiative, the largest program that is created with our ARPA dollars. We have also recommended premium pay for Omaha City employees. First responders provided critical emergency services, and our civilian employees maintain the continuity of critical city operations. With your approval today, we will pay a total of $11 million in premium pay to full and part-time city employees. And finally, citizen input strongly preferred that we use ARPA funds to improve public spaces. So we set aside $10 million, and the Parks Department has prioritized 10 city parks and other public areas for significant upgrades and renovations. We still have requests for funding that is being reviewed. Final decisions about the remaining $9 million of the ARPA funding that we received will be made before the deadlines required by the U.S. Treasury Department. Along with our recommended budget, I'm pleased today to present our 6-year capital improvement plan. The CIP outlines our long-term investments in transportation, public safety, public facilities, parks, and environmental services, and identifies the funding sources. The total for the proposed CIP is $2.7 billion. There are two significant and noteworthy additions this year, or in 2023, to our capital improvement program. The first is $306 million for the streetcar project that we announced in January. Second is I have agreed to invest an additional $10 million to help with the construction of the remaining portions of the riverfront parks. The Jean Leahy Mall is already exceeding expectations, and I know that we will be just as impressed with the reopening next year of Heartland of America Park and Lewis and Clark Landing, which are due to open August of 2023. This investment is in addition to the amounts we have previously agreed to. And keep in mind that the entire riverfront project, one that will benefit all citizens for decades to come, is primarily funded by our generous philanthropic community. I encourage all citizens to know more about our general fund budget and our capital improvement program. Both are available for review on the City of Omaha website, I think as of this moment. It's being put up. Thank you all to the council for your input and your ideas. I enjoyed working with you at helping develop this budget. And thank you to all city staff, department directors, and a special thanks to Steve Curtis, our finance director, Andrew Brott, our budget manager, and Nicole Sweeney and our entire finance team for their commitment and their excellent work. A public hearing on this budget will be held in this chamber on August 16th at 6:30 p.m. I encourage citizens to attend and to provide feedback. All of us take the responsibility for managing city funds very, very seriously, and we do so with transparency and the commitment to excellence that you all expect. Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. We'll give folks a chance to clear the room here for a minute, and we'll continue with our agenda. Madam Clerk.
Items 7 through 11 can be considered together for Capriana, located at 210th and Emmett Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. B is communication opposition. Items 7 and 8, ordinances to rezone this property from AG District to R5 District and R6 District. Item 9, an ordinance to approve a PUD overlay district. Item 10, a resolution to approve a final plat. Item 11, a resolution to approve a subdivision agreement.
Public hearing and vote on items 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 are today. Of note is there's an amendment to the whole of number 10, which we'll have to take separately when we go to vote on these items. First, we'll recognize proponents. Mr. Jobin.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the council, Larry Jobin, 11440 West Center Road, appearing with the applicant. With me today is Cassie Innes of Apogee Professional Services, as well as Reagan Pence of Lamper Nearson. We're really here just to answer any questions that you might have regarding this particular development. I am curious about the amendment to the whole on number 10.
I was going to ask if you've seen that yet. So
I have not.
We'll explain that for you here in a second.
Okay, great, thank you.
Something you'd probably like to know, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, that's what I was wondering.
All right, thank you. Any other proponents on this item? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Jobin, I'll kind of, if you'd like to come back up to the podium, I'll ask planning to explain it. Mr. Fanslow.
Dave Fanslow, City Planning. This morning, staff was contacted, and we found that the creek that runs from southwest to northeast or vice versa, the 3-to-1 plus 20 affects lots 2, 3, and 4, which is northeast of 212th and Emmett. So a portion of the backs of those lots, the north side of those lots, will require a easement to be placed on them to account for that 3-to-1 plus 20. It's a minor amendment. We found out about, I believe we heard from the Public Works Department or the engineer. I'm not sure who notified us, but that's all it is. So we'll add that easement onto the backs of those single-family residential lots.
I think those lots are fairly deep, so it probably won't impact the buildings whatsoever. So I think
I would agree.
Reagan Pence is here if you want to add something.
Reagan Pence, Lamprey Nearson, 14710 West Dodge Road. We've been working with Public Works on an access easement there. We actually have the language already drafted, and we're just looking for a final approval before we get signatures.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, I'll move to approve, at least at this point, 7, 8, 9, and 11.
Second. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding.
Yes.
Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Then I'll move to approve the amendment of the whole for number 10.
Second. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding.
Yes.
Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 12, an ordinance to amend the boundaries of the NCE overlay district to incorporate into that district the property located northeast of 12th Street and Millwork Avenue. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 12 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Motion to approve.
Roll call.
Melton. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 12 is approved 7-0. Items 13 and 14 can be considered together for property located at 84th Street and Lakeview Drive. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 13, an ordinance to rezone this property. Item 14, an ordinance to approve a PUD overlay district and an R6 district.
Public hearing and vote on numbers 13 and 14 are today. We have the proponent by Zoom. Mr. Case will get you off mute here just in a second. Try that.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. President and Council. My name is Eric Case with Bros Engineering, 2309 West 50th Street in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I'm here on behalf of the applicant for the rezoning. In attendance with me today, I have 3 representatives from the Northern Pawcatuck Housing Authority, as well as the lead architect for the project. And we are here to answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Motion and a second, roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Items 13 and 14 are approved, 7-0. Item 15, to consider a Class C liquor license for CK's Lounge located at 13075 West Center Road.
Public hearing and vote on number 15 is today. Proponents, please. Come on down. Yep.
Jennifer Allen, CK's Lounge, LLC, 13075 West Center Road, Omaha, Nebraska, 68144.
Thank you. Here to answer questions, right? All right.
Yeah.
Thanks. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 15 is approved, 7-0.
Thank you.
Item 16, to consider a Class I liquor license for Julio's located at 655 North 114th Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 16 is today. Proponents, please. Mr. Kelly.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the council. Sean Kelly, 2804 South 87th Avenue. Appearing on behalf of the applicant, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
If you could please, Mr. Kelly, let your clients know, I was so happy to see this, not just in my district, but I really enjoyed going to Julio's. I think Councilman Rowe and I were talking about that, the Julio's that used to be behind the Super Target off Center Street. I mean, I loved it. So I am just thrilled that they're going to be back and that they're in a great location right off the overpass, so everybody can make it there, but it's also kind of down the street from where I live too. So very, very happy to see them go into that space that I think Jack and Mary's closed during COVID.
Correct.
And has been empty. So I'm glad to see Julio's go in there.
Yeah, I know their first location on 192nd and Q is doing well, so I think you're not the only one.
All right. Tell them thank you.
Yes.
And I move to approve.
Second. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 16 is approved, 7-0. Item 17, to consider a special designated liquor license application for Septemberfest at CHI Center located at 455 North 10th Street, Lot D, on September 2nd from 5 p.m. to midnight, September 3rd and 4th from noon to midnight, and September 5th from 10 a.m. to midnight, with music until midnight each night.
Public hearing and vote on number 17 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 17 is approved, 7-0. Consent agenda. Any member of the City Council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the City Council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by the City Council Rules of Order.
Items numbers 22 and 23 have been taken off consent because they need amendments of the whole, so they'll be considered separately. So first, we'll have the public hearing on agenda items 18 through 21 and 24 through 28. Actually, those were held on July 19th, so unless there's further comments, I'll take a motion. Motion and a second. Okay, Madam Clerk,
I can just discuss it.
go ahead. The floor is yours.
On number 19, I believe it would be for Public Works or possibly even planning for a question. And this has to do with the vacation of this alley close to 31st and A Street. I'll get you up to speed here, Todd. I remember having this in front of us for the vacations committee. And there were some questions that I had concerning the process for this alley. Well, let me ask this question first. Are we vacating this alley with no money being exchanged hands on the party who's requesting the vacation in the city of Omaha.
Information in front of me, Councilman. I've got a packet here, so give me
Okay.
just a second. And if you can move on. If you have another question on that one, I'm going to be looking here. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head.
And I'll tell you, my problem with this vacation for the city right away, it was deemed that it wasn't a value, but actually with where it sits in the middle of this parcel, that whoever the tenant was storing cars for a very long time. The space was actually being used to make money. I understand that the property owners surrounding this may not have come down to voice their objection to it, but we will have to pull this off because I'll be voting against it.
Councilman, I found that information. Todd Pitzer, Public Works. The fair market value has been determined to be $4,200 for this right away.
Okay.
That cost has been paid by the petitioner.
Okay, all right, good. I didn't see that in there, so.
I
disregard.
apologize for taking some time. I just
Okay.
needed to find that in this packet.
Okay, that's all I needed. I didn't see that on there, and I just knew there had to be a cost associated with it that I didn't find, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second to approve items 18 through 21 and 24 through 28. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 22 is an ordinance levying a special tax assessment for cutting and clearing weeds for Weeds Group 2022-06. A's amendment of the whole requested by the Parks Department.
Is there a motion? Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 23 is an ordinance levying a special tax assessment for litter removal for Litter Group 2022-07. A's amendment of the whole requested by the Parks Department.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Not right now, Larry. The public hearings on agenda items number 29 through 37 and 39 are today. Because number 38 has been taken off consent, we'll come back to that next. If you wish to address the City Council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by name, address, who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent.
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. First of all, I want to complain once again. Inability to hear and understand your secretary and you, Mr. Festerson. You don't sit at the microphone. I can hear everybody else. I have to come down there to hear you, and I have to tell you that every week. I'm opposing number 33, number 737. If you'll let me speak, this
I'm
is
sorry,
my time.
You're an opponent to number 37?
And on the rules, I believe if you hold something out of the consent agenda for discussion, then it opens it up to the public for some discussion, and you are supposed to ask if there are anybody in the audience that wants to comment.
Which I did.
I might
Mr.
be
Storr.
wrong on that.
What number are you speaking
But you
to?
read these things so fast that an average citizen that's here for the first time will not understand your rule or what you're doing.
What number are you
So
speaking
you've
to?
already gone through the agenda by the time you're
Mr.
done.
Benson, I think we're done.
Excuse me, I am against number 37. All right?
All right, well, give him a chance if you're speaking to number 37.
You once
and then-
again for your consideration of a citizen at a public hearing.
You're welcome. Any other folks that want to speak on items number 29 through 37 or 39? Seeing none. Is there a light or a motion? Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 38, a resolution to approve the agreement with the Nebraska Center for Workforce Development and Education in the amount of $40,000 to operate the Project Reset Program from July 1, 2022 to December 31, 2022.
The public hearing and vote on number 38 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Council. Amber Parker, Mayor's Office, 1819 Farnham Street. I'm here today representing the 2022 Community Service Fund Agreement with the Nebraska Center for Workforce Development and Education. We actually have the CEO, Jim Vecchio, here to talk with you today about the program and any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Well, I'm here just to answer any questions. If there are anything specific you want to address, gladly help, try to answer those. I also want to put out there, I don't know if many of you are familiar with the Nebraska Center for Workforce Development and Education, but we are registered as a 501c3 organization. It's been a couple of years now. And what we do underneath that organization, we have 3 pillars. One is called resiliency, where we help people manage through some difficult situations of crisis, namely first responders that have been in a difficult situation, and trying to help them manage through that. As of recent, we had the pandemic of 2020. We had healthcare workers that were having with being overworked, and some of the issues that were coming through some of their facilities where they needed help managing through some of those situations. We have a tools program that's an acronym for trades offer opportunities that lead to success, where we introduce the trades to junior high students, and we try to get to them a little bit sooner rather than the high school side where they we've been informed that could be a little late to the party. So we're trying to do that a little bit sooner. And then what I'm standing here before you today is for Project Reset, where we actually mentor justice-involved individuals, those that are 18 months prior to them being released from incarceration. We have mentors that actually work with them to help them on the transition of being incarcerated to the soft skills of do they have housing, do they have transportation, do they have food? Once they release, do they have their birth certificate? Do they know how to find that? Do they have social security number? Things of that nature. Well, they have one, but do they have the card? Can they actually come up with that? Because they're going to need that for employment. We coach them, we mentor them through that process up through the point where we want to get them into introduce them to a pre-apprenticeship into the trades, and we work with local unions of the steel workers, bricklayers, IBEW 22, and one other one I can't remember, sheet metal workers for that matter, where they actually have pre-apprenticeship programs that we actually try to mentor them through, and the whole goal is to actually get them in an approved apprenticeship program and a full-time employment with a job and benefits in a trade. So I'll gladly help answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. And then just for the record, your name and address too.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's Jim Vecchio. It's 6001 Grover Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68106.
Great. Thank you. Any other proponents on number 38 today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Vecchio, could I please ask you some questions? Thank you. First of all, your program sounds like an excellent program. Did I hear you correctly? You are working with returned citizens. So my question would be, your recruitment of the returned citizens, will that be in the while they're in jail, or how will you recruit these individuals?
Well, that's actually, it's probably a threefold answer. One is the Omaha Police Department does work with some of our mentors and our program director when they have individuals that need help or counseling through some of the situations that they're involved with locally. Then we have our own participants actually refer about 33% of whether it's friends, I don't know if you want to say relatives, but own family members. Once they've been involved with the program, they feel really good about what's going on with their lives and trying to get things in order and the support that we offer them, where they actually refer those people. So about 33% come from participants. And then we have the other side of it that comes from the Nebraska Department of Corrections, where they actually work with our program director prior to their release about 18 months prior, and they notify certain people if it's in our area in the Omaha vicinity that we can work with them on the release on the core foundations, the soft skills, and work them through the program if I'd say if the person so desires that.
So you mentioned in our area. Can you define in our area? Where's
Omaha.
Okay.
Omaha, yeah, because we don't do much outside of Omaha.
Okay, so in areas like north of Omaha, where we have really not a good base for public transportation to your location on 60th and Center, how will you reach out to them?
How do we do that? We actually have, through grants that have been awarded us, we provide Lyft cards or Uber, where we give them $50 cards that are loaded every week. And we just make sure that they're using those Lyft cards for transportation to and from either our facility or to the job site, but that's not to be used for extracurricular activities.
Okay, so if I have some constituents that's interested in your program, who would I point them to?
Our program director,
And is there a name for that?
Abby Kassow, K-O-S-S-O-W. First name A-B-B-Y.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Thank you. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Mr. Vecchio, appreciate you being here today and giving a good rundown on what the Nebraska Center for Workforce Development and Education does.
You're welcome.
And I want to echo just a few of the things you said. In Omaha and in society in general, there's a tremendous need. People need a second chance. In Project Reset, a young man or woman that took a path that they got off the right path, and they're making efforts, and they got to have skin in the game in Project Reset. So they got to meet thresholds, and I've had involvement with this great program where you have to meet thresholds and have skin in the game, and then you get partnered with a building trade, and we know what union building trade jobs are: good wages, they're good benefits, it's health insurance, it's a pension, it's recognizing the dignity of their work. And I'm really happy that you're here today, that you were able to answer those questions. And the recidivism is what costs taxpayers in Omaha and Nebraska, United States, a lot of money. In the efforts behind the scenes, programs like this, and there's many others, that you make, that helps taxpayers. It puts people on the tax rolls, keeps them out of prison, and every effort in society we can make to do that with investments like this, I fully support. So I appreciate you being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you. You want a job?
Thank you. Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I don't have any questions, but just comments. Just today, I had a meeting with somebody, and it was over closing the gap of trying to get a hold of people, regardless of their background, regardless of where they come from, to fill the jobs in the city of Omaha. If you're following along on the agenda, as we all know, there's development every single week. And the biggest question I have is, where are we going to find the help to build the city of Omaha? So this is a small portion, looking through, of the overall budget, I'm aware. And it's actually something I believe a couple years ago, I started with a lower amount asking for this grant money. And I'm glad to see it in front of us now, because honestly, when we talk about $40,000, even if we create one job for the city of Omaha, we have did our job. And I know the numbers in this program far exceed that. So when we continue to work and we continue to pass agenda items weekly that have to pertain around development, we have to remember these are skilled jobs, union jobs within our unions in Omaha that we have to have bodies to fill. And this $40,000 is well spent to do that.
Yeah, and we do appreciate it. I will tell you that we have a waiting list of participants that want to be included in the program. We have 72 waiting now. We just had 9 intakes. Our issue and what the money will be used for is that we're trying to hire 2 additional mentors so that we can actually increase the workload and bring more people into the program through a little bit faster. So our current workload, I should say, per mentor is about between 18 on the low end to 28 on the high end. And it's a lot to manage, but we recognize the need. And our people do a great job. Our mentors do a fabulous job at mentoring these individuals. And, you know, it's interesting because when you're there in any of our offices during the day, Some of the participants, after they get off work, instead of going home, they'll come in and they just want to hang out. I mean, we are their family, more or less. You know, we provide them food while they're there because sometimes they go home to an empty refrigerator. Sometimes there's issues at home, so they just feel safe and they want to just have a respite before they go back to their world until tomorrow morning begins. So these funds do actually help us in another step to get where we need to be to address Councilman Palermo's point.
Yeah, and to continue with that, the bodies you have coming through your program, I promise you, on the end of that, there are places and needs that we need within the city of Omaha to fill. So the more people you can move through your program, the more we can help to build.
Yeah,
Omaha.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. No further lights. Is there a motion? Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 38 is approved, 7-0. Item 40, an ordinance to approve a coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds agreement with Porch Investments to administer City of Omaha Rescue Act program funds in the amount of $20 million.
The vote on number 40 is today. I might give short remarks if nobody else has their lights on, and then we'll see if there's a motion. We talked about this affordable housing strategy in depth last week. I think it's a well thought out strategy, as we talked about at the time. I think it has great partnerships. This is the first time I've seen all of our housing partners on the same page and all working together, which is very encouraging. Not just our nonprofit partners, but also our for-profit partners, which I think it's going to take to help address this massive issue for our city and the shortage of affordable housing throughout our city, which I think is one of the most important things we can be working on. So I'm pleased to support this. I'm looking forward to seeing its implementation and its rollout in a very short fashion here, and would accept the motion. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 40 is approved, 7-0. Item 41, an ordinance to approve the expenditure of coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds for premium pay in the amount up to $3,000 for each city employee. A is amendment of the whole request by the Law Department. B is communication and support.
The vote on number 41 is today. The amendment of the whole includes part-time city employees. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, and I didn't have my light on. My comments kind of go to this agenda item, but kind of all of the ARPA funds together, so I'm just going to make one comment instead of on all of them. And I've received a number of emails, and I've talked to a lot of people. You know, I've had people email me stating, you know, because of all this spending, we've got the inflation we've got, and I agree. It's my opinion that the federal government has spent way too much money and has sent way too much money across the nation, and now we're seeing the effects of this. And it's not just us that are going to have to pay this off. It's going to be my kids and my grandkids are going to have to pay this off. So with that, I want to state I absolutely believe we need to rein in the spending at a federal level, state level, and a city level. But I also think that this mayor and this council has done a really good job doing that. We just heard the mayor state that our budget increase is only a little over 3%. And with the cost of inflation, that's amazing that we are able to continue to do what we're doing, to double and triple the amount of road work we're doing, not increase taxes as we're authorized to do to continue to do the road maintenance. So I think our city has done a good job. And to those that say federal government is spending too much, I agree. But here's our options at this point. We can either use this money for the good of affordable housing for Omaha. And by the way, we're very limited on what we can use this money for. You know, I mean, when we first initially said we were getting this money, I had a meeting with Mayor Kindig of La Vista, and you know what his very first thought was? Great. How much can I return to every property taxpayer? Because I want to just turn around and give the money back to the people that are paying the taxes. And we found out, yeah, no, you can't do that. In fact, this money cannot go into our general fund. We cannot use this money for road maintenance projects. We cannot use this money to pay the normal expenses of this city. We're limited by what the federal government is allowing us to do with that. So we can use it for parks and public spaces. We can use it for affordable housing. We can use it to pay for employees of ours, and we can use it for economic development, such as what we did with the hotel industry.
So we're very limited in what we can use this for. And by the way, if we were to say, federal government, take it back, this money would then go to another city. It doesn't go back to us, the taxpayers. We're still gonna have to pay it. We're still gonna be facing the inflation that we're facing because of the overspending of our federal government. But that money will then go to Kansas City or Chicago or San Francisco or Denver, or it's gonna go somewhere else. It's not going back into our pockets. And so I think what the mayor's done and what this council has done with the number of meetings that we've had, and in fact, even on the last one, I didn't get my button hit, but in affordable housing, we were talking about spending this money. My number one goal was to have something that was sustainable. This kind of money and making affordable housing is something that is going to not only benefit the citizens of Omaha now, but it is gonna benefit my kids and your kids and our grandkids, because we're working towards making sure we have affordable housing for people to remain here. Obviously, if you wanna remain here, having a home that you own, that you take pride in, that you're investing in, is one of those things that will also keep people here. Raise your family in the home, and you have something to pass on to your kids. So again, I get it. It looks like the city of Omaha, where you just went on this spending, spree, and we're spending all kinds of money. But I have to tell you, we've spent months and months contemplating and trying to figure out what the best way to spend this money is. And you know what? The majority of the private businesses on this one in particular, where we're giving $3,000 premium pay to both part-time and full-time employees based on an hourly rate. And the way we did this, we've heard from HR, is the best way to do it pursuant to how our software works for the payment of employees. But I can also tell you, I know numerous private corporations that during the pandemic, they received the PPP funds. And many of them did give premium pay to their employees once they received that. I personally know that from numerous people who worked in numerous different corporations around our city. And you know what? Our city has had problems in recruiting. Even we look at the police, we've said that we've had problems with recruiting our police. We've had problems with getting people that want to, recruiting with Public Works. It looks like we're only 9 short. That's amazing. But as Councilman Palermo has been pressing for years, we've had an average of over 40 open positions in the Public Works Department for street maintenance, for filling our potholes, for plowing our streets. So these are all positions that people work really hard, but we also need to continue to recruit and keep the good workers that we have so that we're not losing them to the private companies that are able to give premium pay, that are able to pay more, and they're able to do this. So if we're gonna have this money, I actually think that this is $3,000 is not a lot of money per employee, but it looks like it went a long way to recruiting because we have managed to reduce that gap. And it's also showing the employees of Omaha that they are valued because we don't have a way to do that. I think Councilman Buckley actually always says the dignity of the work. Well, I think that's important for city workers as well, who work so hard. So again, not really in support of all the spending that we're doing, but I would rather see this money be invested in our city employees, and in making this city better, and having money that is actually going to benefit us and is more of a hand up as opposed to a hand out. And that's how I've looked at all of these spending. Is this something that's gonna be a hand up to people, or is it just a handout? And I think everything that we are doing is a hand up. And again, I would rather keep this money within our city, growing our city and supporting our city, than saying no and giving it to another. So I do support, I support this, number 40, and I would motion to approve. I think there may be other lights on, but just wanted to make that kind of general comment on that, number 41, and it goes for the others.
Your motion to approve the amendment of the whole, correct?
Yes.
I'll second that. Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Mr. President, and I do have one question for law for item 41, and I believe it would be Mr. Endenbosch. Okay, I thought you were trying to use somebody else's line.
Bernard Innebush, Deputy City Attorney.
Yeah, thank you. And for starters, ditto to everything Councilmember Melton said, because that is spot on. So I don't have to say any of that. That's exactly right. I do have one question, because I have heard this recently as of today, and I know the answer, but I don't think I asked it before. And it was about a lump sum payment for this money. Is it a software issue? I understand there is turnover within the city, but could you tell me why employees wouldn't be able to opt for the lump sum?
So it is not an option, and there were two main reasons why it was considered by the ARPA committee in discussions with the finance department, and there were two reasons why it was determined that the $10 per hour was the way to go. One was the ARPA reporting requirements. The ARPA reporting requirements require us to convert it to an hourly basis. So if we attempted to do a lump sum, we would have to come up with some fiction, and I think they were a little uncomfortable with that just because of all the stringency of the reporting requirements that our ARPA has. The second reason, probably the more practical reason, is with our payroll system, anytime we make any changes, add a new category, it requires a certain amount of programming. When it came to programming this particular function, it was far easier to program it as in an additional pay category on an hourly basis than it was to attempt to do with it lump sum and to include all the other categories that we have to include. We probably made it a little more complicated by not making it a pension eligible payment as well, so that you kind of have to set it apart from some of the other stuff that we do. So those are the two reasons why.
No, thank you for that. I appreciate it. There's a lot of work that went in to this from the law department and the finance department as well. And believe it or not, you might think it's a slam dunk that city employees would love the $10 an hour more, but not everybody will opt for this. There are some that don't want this money, like I said last week, for their own personal reasons. I had a phone call on the way in today from a gentleman who was upset, saying the money's not being spent the right way, and he wasn't in favor of it either. But we will agree to disagree because I think this money is going to be well spent. If I had a magic wand to help the executive branch and the legislative branch of the city that we all help to run, if I had a magic wand, the city would be very easy to run with every single department having every single budgeted position filled. But that's just not the case. So I know this will help with that. And when we have more people taking care of the city, then our city does run better. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I know this will help. I know HR is working hard, and I certainly will support this and look forward to seeing how it's spent in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks. In regards to agenda item 41, Councilmember Melton did a really nice detailed job, as she always does, on an issue where that money's being invested. And I know this council recognized the work that the city employees did during the pandemic. And I personally thanked the presidents of Local 385, the firefighters, and the Police Officers Association. And I want to make sure that Tony Burkhalter of Local 251 and his members that also were out in the elements of the pandemic and COVID to make sure our city ran smoothly. So this is an investment in the appreciation for what those workers did to sacrifice for the city and the taxpayers of Omaha. Thanks.
Thank you. There's no further lights. There's a motion and a second on the amendment of the whole. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo. Yes. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 42, an ordinance to approve a real estate purchase and sale agreement with Civic Corner LLC for a redevelopment site located northeast of 19th and Capitol Streets for approximately $1,524,600.
The vote on item number 42 is today. I would just note we do have the applicant by Zoom, Mr. Klein, if needed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Mr. President, thank you very much. We did have a lot of discussion last week regarding this item as it relates to the City of Omaha, past City of Omaha Civic Corner. I just wanted to make the recommendation to move that this item be accepted.
I'll second that. No further lights. Roll call.
Milton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 42 is approved, 7-0. Item 43, an ordinance to approve an agreement with the Community Information Trust to design and construct a new central library at 72nd and Dodge Streets, wherein the city will contribute $20 million on or before January 1, 2025. A is communication in support, B is communication in opposition.
The vote on number 43 is today. I'll accept any lights or a motion. There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Milton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 43 is approved, 7-0. Item 44, a resolution to approve a settlement agreement for Corey D. Buckley versus City of Omaha in the amount of $50,000.
Public hearing and vote on number 44 is today. Proponents, please.
Matt Husey, City of Omaha Law Department, here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Milton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 44 is approved, 7-0. Item 45, an ordinance levying a special tax and assessment on certain lots, parts, lots, and pieces of real estate for sidewalks in district number SWSR 2022-01.
The public hearing on number 45 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, oh, go ahead.
Sean Gibson, Public Works Construction, here for answering questions.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other proponents today on number 45? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 46, an ordinance to accept the bid of Midwest Maintenance Company, Inc. in the annual amount of $65,500.56 to provide janitorial services at the Public Safety Training Center.
Public hearing on number 46 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 47, an ordinance to amend Section 23-177 of the Omaha Municipal Code by changing the salary range of the employment classification entitled Criminalist. Personnel Board recommends approval.
Public hearing on number 47 is today. Proponents, please.
Deb Sanders, City Human Resources, here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents today?
William Henningsen, Omaha Police Department Forensic Manager, 505 South 15th Street.
Thank you. Other proponents on number 47? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Deb, you got a minute for
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. We talked this morning in HR committee, and if you can just give a brief rundown when people read this on the agenda that the salary's going up, but the details that went into how you arrived at that.
Yes, sir. So when we received our salary data for the criminalist position, it was based on a class specification that was last updated in 2016. The market data placed the salary for this particular position below that of the forensic positions that it supervises. So therefore, we went in and looked at the class specification and saw that there was a lacking of emphasis on the supervisory duties of this specific job, as well as the policy and procedure depth of breadth of knowledge. So when we added those things to the class specification, we then looked at the various comparable cities, comparable counties, and that data, and it brought this particular position in line to where it would be, so that way it's no longer less than the positions that it supervises.
Great answer, and you explained that to us this morning in our monthly meetings. You guys do detail analysis through Silverstone and others when you do the market rate, because as we learned through COVID, you know, the bargaining you guys did with Local 251, we mentioned the AEO position. I want to applaud your team. You did a tremendous job of that, but when you do these comparables, you recognize what positions are maybe out of bounds or out of you know, they're not in range of what they should be with the comparables. So I think it's important that people understand that in the detailed analysis you do, and that's how you arrived at that today. So I don't have any other question, but I appreciate your team's work on that, because it's not easy to do that, but you want to be fair and recognize the duties and the wages or salaries that are applicable to the classifications that are within the city, that we're having well-paid, fairly compensated people, men and women, to do these jobs. So I appreciate your work on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. No further lights. Next item.
Item 48, an ordinance to amend Section 23-177 of the Omaha Municipal Code by changing the salary range of the employment classification entitled Superintendent of Permits and Inspections. Personnel Board recommends approval. B is amendment of the whole requested by the Law Department.
Public hearing on number 48 is today. Proponents, please.
Deb Sander, City Human Resources, here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 49, an ordinance to amend Section 23-177 of the Omaha Municipal Code by adding the employment classification entitled Technical Systems Coordinator. Personnel Board recommends approval. B is amendment of the whole requested by the Law Department.
Public hearing on number 49 is today. Proponents, please.
Deb Sander, City Human Resources, here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 84, a resolution to approve a contract with CCS Presentation Systems in the amount of $107,966.30 for audio and video equipment.
Public hearing and vote on number 84 is today. Proponents, please. I'll note we have Ms. Marlene by Zoom. We'll get you off, or Troy, if you want to start, go ahead.
Yeah, Troy Anderson, Mayor's Office, 1819 Farnham Street, here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any other proponents on number 84? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 84 is approved, 7-0. Item 85, a resolution to approve a contract with Midwest Storage Solutions in the amount of $263,294.13 to install shelving.
Public hearing and vote on number 85 is today. Proponents, please.
Troy Anderson, Mayor's Office, 1819 Farnham Street, here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 85 is approved, 7-0. Item 86, a resolution to approve a contract with ASI Signage Innovations in the amount of $44,490 to manufacture and install signage.
Public hearing and vote on number 86 is today. Proponents, please.
Troy Anderson, Mayor's Office, 1819 Farnham Street, here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 86 is approved, 7-0. Item 87, a resolution to approve amendment number 1 to the agreement with the Whites Company in the amount of $2,530,279.
Public hearing and vote on number 87 is today. Proponents, please.
Troy Anderson, Mayor's Office, 1819 Farnham Street, here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Harding, I believe your light's on, is that correct?
It is.
Go ahead.
Mr. Henderson, actually, you can comment on this one as well as number 88, at least the reasons for each for the guaranteed maximum price. Just wanted to, so the public knows a little bit about why we're going about doing it this way.
Yeah, so specifically 87, and then as suggested, the same kind of comments apply to number 88. You may recall that we went through the exercise a couple of weeks or months ago around hiring a construction manager at risk. We, number one, adopted the policies around how we hire a construction manager at risk. And then we actually went through the process of entering into agreements with a construction manager at risk for 1401 Jones and for 3020 South 84th Street. Went through that competitive process, received proposals from contractors, selected a contractor based on the fact that they would do due diligence and they would do work at that point in time without compensation, getting to a point where they establish a guaranteed maximum price. So this item in particular is the guaranteed maximum price on the library sort of administrative building at 3020 South 84th Street. The next item is for the guaranteed maximum improvements at 1401 Jones Street. Again, under separate sort of contracts with different contractors. But what this amendment does is it takes that contract that you all previously approved. This creates the first amendment to that contract that says this contractor shall provide pre-construction and construction services for a guaranteed maximum price of, in this case, $2.530279 for the property at 3020 South 84th Street, and subsequently on item number 88 for a guaranteed maximum price of $3.928595, and that those contractors would do the work on the schedule that they described for a not to exceed maximum price to do the tenant improvements. So this is that first amendment to the contract. We have arrived at that guaranteed maximum price.
All right, thank you. Move to approve.
Motion.
Oh, sorry.
Motion and a second. Mr. Rowe, you're recognized.
I just had a question on the on 87 and 88. How do those numbers compare to kind of your budgeted expectation in the planning phase?
So actually, we got some email correspondence from our owner's rep who's been helping us get through the process, right? And so when we set out early on, we sort of in our mind had this less than $10 million number to do tenant improvements at both 1401 Jones and 3020 South 84th Street. Includes all of the items that you've previously approved, the audio video, the shelving, a number of other items that we went through the competitive. So in the back of our mind, we had this number of it'll probably cost us about $10 million. We're within 2.44% of that target budget. Putting us today about 9.378 million, sort of all in with owner's rep, with all of the equipment and all the services that we have obtained. So we feel really good about our initial estimate and where we are today.
Thank you. No further lights. There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 87 is approved, 7-0. Item 88, a resolution to approve amendment number 1 to the agreement with Ronco Construction Company, Inc. in the amount of $3,928,595.
Public hearing and vote on number 88 is today. Proponents, please.
Troy Anderson, Mayor's Office, 1819 Farnham Street, here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 88 is approved, 7-0. Item 89, a resolution to approve a lease agreement with 1402 Howard LLC for the lease of certain premises located at 1410 Howard Street for use as an interim public library facility computer lab beginning August 1, 2022.
Public hearing and vote on number 89 is today. Proponents, please.
Troy Anderson, Mayor's Office, 1819 Farnham Street, here to answer any questions.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name for the record. Any other proponents here today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Troy, a couple questions for you. 1410 Howard, downtown, there's a parking lot on the west end of that building there. Is there any available spaces the city can lease for this 6 months to provide people that want to use that temporary site?
That's an excellent question. That arrangement hasn't been negotiated as of today. However, we'd be more than happy to reach out to the property owner and see if there's an arrangement that could be made.
I would appreciate you doing that because, as we know, downtown parking is a challenge, and I'm sure my colleagues might want to touch on the transportation modes to reach a temporary site. I know we went through that at the 1401 Jones months ago, but I think it applies here, and just seeing that big lot there, I know there's cars that lease spaces, but I would appreciate if you could reach out and see if that maybe is something that's available and kind of follow back up and let us know.
We will, yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Troy, earlier during our pre-council, there was my concern regarding transportation, public transportation, getting to the temporary site. Have we gotten any information regarding the bus schedule? How will that look? How will that shape out the frequency of the bus getting individuals from primarily North Omaha to this site?
Yeah, so since pre-council this morning, I did a little bit of research, and so I went through at the request of Councilmember Melton as well, went through and did a little bit of research on all of the different branch locations and their proximity to additional Omaha Metro bus routes. So this first one I came across, this is A.V. Sorensen, 4808 Cass Street. If you'll notice, the nearest transit stops are actually several blocks away. I believe this is the number 4 route, the Maple Street route. I think I looked at it, it was about a 10-minute walk from the library to this nearest transit station. It's about a 7-minute walk from the library down to the Orbit. This is actually the Orbit line.
While those comparisons are great, the Dale Library is the only library that was relocated. And so my interest is on the bus schedule and how that will be efficient for those that depended on the public library being Dale Clark in this area.
So absolutely, if you'll allow me to continue just a little bit. So that was one location. That was the location that had the furthest distance from a transit stop. I went through, here's Benson, within 2 blocks of a number of different transit lines. Here was, this is Washington, within a block of 1 transit line, within 3 blocks of other transit lines. And I went through a number of others. So as it relates to the temporary location of 1410 Howard Street, as you can see, it is consistent with other branch locations east of 42nd or 72nd. I don't remember exactly what you asked for earlier this morning, but in the analysis, most of our branch locations are within a block or 2 or 3 of at least 1 transit line. So this is the temporary location of 1410 Howard Street. You can see the adjacent transit line that runs down 14th Street, so there is access to that today. As far as schedules and frequency of those schedules, I mean, that depends on when somebody's traveling, where they're traveling from. So as that relates to the future 1401 Jones, you'll notice that there was nothing adjacent. The nearest was a block away. But I can tell you that we have been in contact with Metro. Our Public Works Department's been working with Metro. They're actually looking to try and provide a transit stop right there on the corner of 1401 Jones, which is the new location, the new permanent location. So for the next 6 months, I'll go back to that previous illustration. For the next 6 months, there are transit lines that do provide access to within a block of 1410 Howard Street. Now, you had asked from just a minute ago from North Omaha. Remember, 1410 Howard and the future 1401 Jones are simply is just like a branch location. It serves the adjoining communities and neighborhoods. If somebody's coming from the Florence area, they're probably not going to come to 1410 or 1401 Jones because the same services can be obtained at the Florence branch. Same with other branches in other proximity to other neighborhoods. The downtown branch is simply providing programming and services for that neighborhood. The central library types of programs, services, etc., that somebody from North Omaha, South Omaha, West Omaha may be looking for, those are being relocated to the 3020 South 84th Street location for the next several years until such time as the new central library at 72nd and Dodge will be constructed. So administration, genealogy, special collections, none of that will be available at either 1410 Howard or 1401 Jones. All of those are being taken with other central libraries. So 1410 Howard and 1401 Jones will simply be another branch location serving the adjoining neighborhoods and communities.
So individuals that live, for example, at 24th and Cummings,
Yes.
they will not be able to get to this location using public transportation as it is today.
Yes, they will. There, as I showed, there's a transit line that runs right by 1410 Howard, and we are working closely with Omaha Metro to add a transit stop adjacent to the future 1401 Jones.
Okay, but we have been, we knew that from the onset that there was a concern with constituents in this area regarding how it would be accessible with the location being moved from Dale Clark to the temporary as well as the permanent, which will be on Jones later, 6 months later. So the Public Transportation Department was supposed to provide this body with a schedule, with making some changes to the schedule to make it more feasible, give us timetables where that would be more accessible for us to arrive at the destination of the library. We still have not been provided that information from the transportation company. They're not here today, and now we have a temporary route where they still have not provided us with any bus schedule. They agreed to look at the bus schedule in terms of frequency. They agreed to adjust that so that it would be more feasible for individuals to go to the library. And those things have not been answered, even with the temporary, even with the later phase as it relates to Jones Street. So if we're not answering that question today, when will the bus company decide to provide us with the frequency of when those bus routes are going to be changed, bus schedules are going to be accommodating those individuals that live, say, on 25th and Franklin, say on 30th and Lake Street, those areas where they cannot go to Sorensen Library. Those pockets in this community that did rely upon the library downtown, how will they get there using the current bus structure? We've talked about that over and over again. I realize that's not your answer, but again, I'm asking the public transportation company to provide us with the alternative for them to provide a more frequent, more reliable opportunity for people to have access to the library, whether it's the temporary library or where it's going to be shifted in 6 months. We don't have that today.
And I guess it's, from our perspective, I guess that's somewhat of a difficult question to answer, because folks that are coming from the areas that you just described, number one, ascertaining whether or not they were coming to W. Dale Clark because it was the closest branch and that they were seeking branch location services, or were they trying to get from their residence, their place of business, to W. Dale Clark because there was some other central library. So it's a little hard to answer, number one, whether they were using Dale Clark as their closest branch. And the best way to answer that question is however they were using the transit system to get to Dale Clark is the same method that they would use to get to either 1410 Howard or 1401 Jones. Those buses don't necessarily always run on the same schedule, right? So it's kind of hard to give you an answer about scheduling because those schedules change, those schedules evolve. The entire Omaha Metro transit system is based on ridership. So depending on where ridership is, it takes weeks, it takes months for them to study and evaluate rider patterns and how to respond to those. There's investments that are needed into transit stations. They can't just stop anywhere. They've got to make investments in transit stations, which is, like I said, what we're working on, what our Public Works Department is working on with them is to identify how a transit station can be added to the intersection of 14th and Jones. That takes time. There's construction, there's permitting. There's a whole host of processes that both the Metro and the city work towards to try to respond to ridership and users. It may not necessarily be feasible to reroute buses, change bus schedules for a 6-month interim period. So I guess I'm not maybe necessarily sure how to answer your question beyond those folks that are trying to get to Dale Clark today can use the same system to get to 1410 Howard.
Okay, as you can recall, when we first started this conversation about the library and the relocation of the library, the comments were that there was a problem with public transportation going back and forth, north to south. It's always been a problem for decades. MAPA, a Metro Area Transit, Lauren, agreed to evaluate the bus route, to evaluate the frequency when we made this shift of the temporary, or more importantly, the location on Jones. And she has not provided us with that information. She agreed to research and provide us and had a willingness to change the route so that it would be more frequent than what it was prior to the determination of moving the library. And all I'm asking today is, where is that information? How come that information has not been provided and now we have moved to a temporary location at 1402, same problem for this community regarding reliable transportation and frequency of that unreliable transportation. And I still don't have an answer.
And the best answer I can give you right now is, as it relates to 1401 Jones, that information is forthcoming, right? We have to identify whether or not a station is feasible. I'm sure they've done a number of different but until we determine whether a station is feasible, how that impacts routes. So I would say, as it relates to 1401 Jones, I would say that information is forthcoming. So as it relates to 1410 Howard Street, which is the subject of the interim lease, I don't expect anybody's going to go through, because that's a lot of due diligence. I don't expect anybody's going to go through, especially because the site today is served by a transit line that runs adjacent to the location. As far as maybe frequency, I mean, we could certainly talk to them about whether or not they could increase frequency. But as far as adding additional routes to serve a location that's already served today, I'm not sure Metro would go through the due diligence or the exercise of adding additional routes to a location that's already served today. But as far as 1401 Jones is concerned, the best answer I can probably give you is that that information is forthcoming.
I've already asked Lauren to look at frequency, and she agreed to do so, and that hasn't been done. So at this time, I won't be able to vote in favor of this.
Fair enough.
Thank you. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Festerson. I think I was going to try to maybe simplify, I think, what you were trying to say, Troy. The routes that exist today, actually, I just, as Mr. Rowe knows, I've been riding the bus a little more frequently because of a car issue. But so I'm not becoming an expert on Metro, but I am a more frequent rider these days. You would still take the 18 from North Omaha today you would take it to the W. Dale Clark. You would take the 18, I think it's probably maybe one stop further than that, which puts you at 15th and Harney. And from 15th and Harney to 1410 Howard, it's less than a tenth of a mile. It's a couple hundred, maybe a couple hundred, 250 yards. So, and the amount of time, so the amount of time that it would take for, if you were leaving 24th and Lake on the 18 to get to the W. Dale Clark, it's about a 15-minute bus drive. That's how long you're on the bus. You would be on the bus for about an extra minute, and then you'd have about 200 yards to walk. So, and that's this is a temporary solution. And we all know that what we're going for, we got to keep our eye on the prize at the end of the day, and that's an expanded and improved library system for the whole of Omaha, including a new main at 72nd and a new branch in the downtown area. And so, at least on the temporary, look, there's always a little pain with, for getting through that period of adjustment, and I appreciate what's been done to find a temporary location with limited expenses associated with that, so that we can get to the next step. So I don't see any need for expanded routes for the temporary site. And I know you've said that you're working with Metro on maybe a new, site stop at 14th and Jones. So I appreciate what's been done here and the work that's been done here, and know that the transportation to the temporary location is going to be essentially the same as it is today to the W. Dale Clark.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Oh, thank you. And I think Laura Marlene is on. And Laura, because this temporary site is just going to, basically you can pick up books, drop off books, and use computers at the temporary site. Is that right?
Yes. Everything except story times, programming, that kind of internal stuff. But there'll be printing, faxing, scanning, computer access, some small collections for browsing, and pick up holds and drop materials off.
Okay. And currently we have Benson, Sorensen, Washington, Florence, all of those libraries, which actually are in the northwest part of our city, they have a lot more to offer at this point than this temporary location, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, I think we've had some renovations going on. We put new carpet in some of those places, correct?
Yes, there's been a lot going on at all of the branches over the past few years.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Maybe people might want to, if they're traveling a long distance to get to a downtown location, they may want to check out the library that's closer to their house. Of course, where I live, there is no library close to my house, but we won't talk about that today. So, all right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And then I just wanted to, I was able to find the schedule for the route at ometro.com. And so all the routes are right there. And I also know if you want it, they offer it in multiple languages so that you can get the Metro bus route in multiple languages from Metro, so that it's easily accessible and in multiple languages for people to be able to utilize from Metro, which is not run. I know people get very confused. People think that the city of Omaha controls the buses, but they don't, and they don't have any connection to our libraries. So obviously, what Metro does is they look at ridership, and if there's more riders or there's people that want to go to certain places, it has nothing to do whether the city owns it or doesn't own it. It's more of a ridership. So Metro then looks at the ridership. And I see, it looks to me like what they're doing and trying to expand into the region as opposed to just our city, I think will benefit everybody as well, if we can get ridership that is going north and south and beyond the borders of our city, so that people in North Omaha can get to Bellevue, so that people in, South Omaha can get all the way up farther north. So I really do think with the expansion and kind of the big picture that Metro is looking at right now gives me quite a bit of hope that they're expanding our regional transportation system throughout. And I did find multiple routes going from North Omaha downtown. It does look like the 18 is that's the one I'd probably take if that's the one I was going. But I did find multiple other libraries that I think would actually provide a lot more services. So I would suggest in the interim, even using the other libraries if for some reason you were venturing all the way downtown. So, thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you. Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple comments to follow on with the discussion we're having. Obviously, I remember vividly being in the chambers here when we talked about the original move, and I just wasn't sure if it was going to happen on time. And I remember driving by there with a couple of my colleagues a couple days later, maybe the following week, and I had never seen more people working at a site than I had at 1401 Jones. So I was hoping that I was wrong, but it turned out that I was right, and this site will not be ready. So here we find ourselves here again today, adding money, luckily not taken away from the library's budget, but it's still city money that we're now discussing putting in a temporary location. So I find myself with some questions, because this was added to the agenda as a supplement pretty late in the week. So I'll start with you, Troy. If you'd come on up, please.
Troy Anderson, Mayor's Office, 1819 Farnham Street.
So obviously the hard work you've put into this, running solo in your office as you are, not to mention this may be your last meeting, correct?
I still have next week, so I look forward to maybe trying to have something on the agenda just to get in front of you all again.
Okay.
I'm not going to make anything up, but I mean,
I
will
thought
be
maybe
here.
This was your parting gift. To
No,
throw all this on the
I
supplement
still got
like
one
that.
more.
Yeah, just don't do supplemental agenda next week.
Okay.
Okay, so nice questions gone, hard questions, here we come. So when did you present this to the clerk to add to the agenda?
So, so we had originally tried to get these 8 items on last week's agenda, not as a result of anything that the clerk was done. It was our own inability to gather the information, have the conversations that we needed to have the negotiations that we needed to have, get to those guaranteed maximum prices. I mean, as late as maybe Wednesday of last week, we were still working on getting that guaranteed maximum price on one of the contracts. And so we reached out to the clerk's office Wednesday, Thursday of last week, informed them that we were going to have some items for the agenda. We were working feverishly Wednesday, Thursday to try to get cover letters, resolutions, attachments together. And then I believe we delivered them all successfully Friday afternoon late. And again, clerk's office was gracious enough to work with us so that we could maintain this development timeline. And they were able to put all of these 8 items on the agenda as a supplement, again, so that we can make sure that we were being responsible to maintaining library services to the downtown community without interruption. That was also a promise that we had kind of made to the Omaha Library Board of Trustees, library administration, that we would try to do this as efficient and as effective as possible without impacting, and we think that this is actually, when it's all said and done, going to be the best outcome, because we will be able to transition downtown branch services out of Dale Clark and into this interim facility sooner than we had hoped, and perhaps without any impact to providing those services. Initially, we had kind of thought that maybe we'd be able to get done and get out by the end of October, the end of September. The negotiations we had with the Board of Trustees and the library was, there may be a 6-week lapse of services. That was what we originally maybe contemplated. It was a worst case scenario, which would have put us done with 1401 Jones by mid-November. As we got into the facility, we had some structural engineers provide us some input on some best practices. We then immediately began the process of trying to understand, okay, if it's not going to be done by mid-November, what are our options? And that's where we're here today.
Yeah, I was looking back through my emails and I receive a lot of them, but it looks like on Friday afternoon, maybe that we received this revised estimate.
Yes.
From the city clerk's office.
Yes.
I think it says 310 actually. So for those listening and paying attention that say, well, gosh, council, aren't you guys listening? Aren't you working for us? Well, we are. And when we see aggressive timeline, when we hear aggressive timeline, when we get this the supplement put on the agenda on a Friday afternoon, here we are Tuesday. So it's not possible for us to have all the answers to the questions that we need, because we certainly do have questions. So I have one for Laura, if I could. Okay.
Yes.
So we find ourselves with some possible agreements in front of us for not the move, but a temporary spot, a backup to the backup, as some will say. There's a level of service that I know is important to you, because it is certainly important to me, that we should be providing as a city of Omaha to every single branch we have. And the problem I have with this location move is I don't think we're going to provide that level of service, but you're the director and I want to hear from you. Do you feel that the level of service that the citizens of Omaha deserve is going to be adequate in this temporary move to 1410 Howard Street?
I believe it will be adequate there. Will it be the best service we can provide? Well, we're trying to make the new downtown branch the best service we can provide. And unfortunately, we can't get that project done in this amount of time. And so in order to have no lapse of service at all, this interim space will be adequate, and we will have it staffed the same hours as the main branch, and we will be there for the public. We'll be providing research. The only services we won't have will be in-person programming. It is the best interim solution that we could find.
Okay, and I do appreciate the work. Reading through the MOU and hearing Troy speak, I hear about communication and working together as a team. And in the MOU, it states the Library Board of Trustees, the library CEO, the owner's representative, and the city shall work together to accomplish the goals. I can tell you that I have met and talked to a lot of folks that I just mentioned, but I haven't worked with you on the goals that we have set out for the level of service that our citizens deserve. I know it's an MOU, but somebody wrote it. Somebody wants us to follow it. So that's the problem I have. You have all these entities that we say as a city we should work together to provide the best service. It's going to be adequate. And I know I have buried the hatchet because I already voted against 1401 Jones, but I woke up the next day promising to make that the best branch, well, right behind the South Omaha branch, in the city of Omaha. I'm still committed to do that. And now I have another item in front of me where I have to look out for the services of the citizens, because here's what I'm stuck with. This is so easy to vote no for it. But if one person walks into that branch, the temporary branch, which I actually drove by today, was pleasantly surprised. It's actually a nice place. It looked like it's adequate to be able to walk into. It was easy to park. I know there is bus routes around there. I know the sidewalks looked in much better shape than 1401 Jones when I first looked at that. So that helps. But if one person walked into that branch and used the computer and applied for a job or was able to get on the internet and search for something they needed to better themselves, that's the problem I have, because it would be worth it to me then. Because it's easy to say no, but you have to think of them certain individuals that we could actually help in the city. And that's where I find myself. So I know we have at least I believe I heard we have a 6-month lease. Laura, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I really hope that 1401 Jones is done in 6 months, but I have to be honest. We live in the world where there are so many variables. It can't be, I can't ask you if it's going to be open. I can't ask Troy if it's going to be open, because we don't know, because we're going to be dependent on other people to get 1401 Jones. So my question is, do we have the opportunity? Because not only would I freak out, but so would a lot of other people if 6 months from now the lease is terminated and you're told to move and Jones isn't ready. Do we have the opportunity to extend the lease at 1410 Howard if needed? Troy, please. Sorry, Laura, that might have been a fair question for you.
Sorry, so the existing lease agreement as it's written is for just the 6 months. I mean, obviously we could reach out to the owner and see if they're willing to negotiate on month by month thereafter. However, don't forget that in the GMP that we just voted on, that the contractor guarantees that they will provide 1401 Jones for the guaranteed maximum price based on the delivery date in the agreement.
Is there fines and penalties if it's not delivered?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay, but there's still many things out of that contractor's control that could make that site not available. So I think I know a lot of people are on this aggressive timeline. I'm not one of them.
Short of a global pandemic, I know that one's really easy, right? That was the reason why we brought the contractor on board early, though, right? Was because the contractor can provide us with information on procurement schedules, can provide us information on availability of labor, right? So that's why we brought the contractor on before we got to a guaranteed maximum price, because the contractor then says, well, yeah, I know I can get that material. I know I can get that. In fact, there's also some advanced procurement risk that the contractor's probably going through as well, just to make sure, because at the end of the day, they know that they have a responsibility to deliver that as well. That's why we brought the contractor in early and not waited until we went through design and then went out for bid and then hired the contractor, and then the contractor has to say, okay, well, now I've got issues with procurement. The contractor's already vetted the schedule. He's already vetted the availability of materials and labor and everything else, and that's why the contractor feels comfortable entering into that guaranteed maximum price today, because they have a much better idea based on working with the owner's rep, based on working with the design team, that they can deliver based on all the information that they have available today.
Yeah, no offense, but I feel like I'm living in Groundhog Day, because I heard that already. And now we have a temporary lease in front of us for this guarantee of this site that is not ready. And I can't point fingers because it's not our fault. So we have to work together. We haven't worked together. All we do is get things last minute put on the agenda for us to scramble through, because at the end of the day, we have constituents to answer to. And these are our constituents that use these public spaces. That's why it matters. So 6 months isn't going to do it for me. You're going to have to get me on the record that we're gonna go either month to month after that, or even an extended lease, because I've already been guaranteed one time that this library that I got behind, even though I wasn't for it in the beginning, I'm not gonna do it again. So I need more than 6 months on this lease, because this is out of either one of your controls to make sure that 1401 Jones is done.
We will reach out to the property owner.
Okay, so do you wanna lay this over until we hear back from them that they can do it?
Any delay, and again, if
No, I'm not gonna hear any delay again.
well,
I've
I'm
lived
just
with
saying,
any
like, the
delay for
contract
last
agreement,
6
the
months.
contract agreement says occupying August 1st. If you all don't hear this until August 2nd, and then a schedule thereafter that becomes effective, we may not get in and start being able to work on the space until mid-August. That could impact the schedule. So, again, I can tell you that we will work diligently to.
I've heard all this before.
I know.
So you use your own medicine that you're using on us. Be aggressive. Get it done. Stop putting aggressive on us to make these decisions when we get a supplement on Friday afternoon, and be aggressive and get it done.
We are working diligently, we are working daily, we are working diligently to try to get this project done, which is why we all feel very comfortable right at this point in time with the guaranteed maximum prices that the contractors delivered us, that they will deliver the project on time.
Make no mistake, Troy, I appreciate your hard work on this, because you're short time, and I know you could just walk out the door right now. And
That's the
see you
last
guys
thing I
later.
want to do.
So I
know.
I promise you, I appreciate it. I'll ask you to stay next week. So let me ask a Parliament question. We're going to get an answer on if we can go month to month or extend the lease, and you think it's not important, but I promise you, we're here today because we did not meet a timeline to begin with. So it is important. The way this votes, Madam Clerk, could I vote yes for it and bring it back to vote on it again? Or do I have to be on the no side to be able to bring it back if I wanted to make a change?
If you wanted to do a reconsideration, it would just be, you would have to be on the prevailing side.
On the prevailing side. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Troy. Thank you, Laura. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I can't tell at the moment whose light is next on my monitor. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
You can pass on me.
Okay. Mr. Harding, your light's on?
It is. Thank you. A couple things. One, I know this showed up on a supplemental agenda, but after our, Troy did brief the library committee last Tuesday. Sarah had typed up the meetings and distributed those to the rest of the council on Thursday morning. So we did, one might say that's still rushed, but it certainly is, the information was there that these items were coming. And most of these, as I noted this morning at pre-council, actually deal with items associated with 1401, so the AV equipment and things like that. I think we have we have a decision to make today, and that's, do we want to discontinue offering any library services to the people in the downtown area, or for a relatively manageable amount of money, do we want to continue to offer some of those basic library services? And I think the answer is pretty clear. I think we've heard from constituents as well as others that the library is a very important part of our community, and it's if we can, for as I said, a relatively manageable amount of money, which again does not come out of the library's operating budget, but goes back to what Mr. Anderson was saying earlier about the library capital fund, which is still under budget from what we thought, and with the improvements with the lease, it's still well underneath what that expected amount was to be and what was budgeted for. So I think those are important components to consider as well too. As it relates to the lease, I've had some conversations with one of the partners of that property. I was actually trying to see if I could get him to go along with being civic minded and maybe give it to us for $1. Wasn't able to negotiate that out, so don't hold that against me for any other future negotiations. But I think it's been well explained too that the contractor has to deliver for a price on a budget, on a schedule. If they don't meet that schedule, then there are penalties for that. And that will also, if there's, I don't anticipate that that's going to result in an interruption of services, but I'm comfortable with moving forward on this, so I'll make a motion to approve.
And I'll second that, but my light's still on.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
There's a motion and a second. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Yeah, well, I think there's one person that we could probably hear from that might be able to answer some of the questions. Mr. Noddle, could you come up?
Jay Noddle, 2285 South 67th Street in Exarban Village.
And Mr. Noddle, first there was some talk of, well, I want to make sure, I want to get into an extended lease. Well, as a lawyer and maybe somebody that's in leases, I don't want to get into any kind of extended lease if we don't need the time. I don't want to have the city committed to any kind of additional monies that we don't have to spend. In fact, my initial thought was, why don't we just not have a library for 6 months? It's only temporary because there's plenty of other libraries all around the North and South Omaha area, and it would just be a minor inconvenience for a couple months. But I get it. People want their downtown library, and the majority of the users of the downtown library live in downtown. And so for this amount, and due to the fact that we're under budget, I would support this lease, but I wouldn't support signing a lease that's any longer, because my hope would be you can get it done, and you're probably the one that can answer that question. So,
Well, thank you.
Let me know.
I think I can help.
Okay.
First of all, I have confirmed that the lease has 2 60-day extensions in it. It also has a month-to-month provision subsequent to the second 60-day extension. One of the reasons it took a little bit longer to get this lease negotiated was so that we could get those 2 60-day extensions incorporated into the documents. So with respect to that, I would recommend, in my professional opinion, that the city move forward with this lease. I think you have the protection for additional time should the marketplace be such that, for whatever reason, 1401 Jones can't be completed at the scheduled date. I would also like to say, if it's okay, that one of the reasons that this has taken a little more time is because, irrespective of how the council may be involved, the city staff, the library staff, the library board, to the extent they choose to be involved, Noddle Company staff, the architects and the contractors for both locations meet and work on this every day, both locations. So there's a very high level of collaboration taking place amongst the folks that are responsible to design, deliver, and operate the facilities, whether it's the lab, which is the library administration building, 1401 Jones, or the temporary facility. The memorandum of understanding between the city and the library board contemplated, as you may recall, that there may be a need for a temporary facility, and so that was incorporated into the MOU. The reason for a little bit more sunlight on this, I guess you'd say, the reason it has taken a while longer to get to the GMP with the various contractors is because the design and construction marketplace is such that whatever you do, numbers come back a heck of a lot higher than they used to be and a heck of a lot higher than we want them to be. So we have to take a little bit of time to think through value engineering, substituted materials and systems and things like that without compromising quality. Got to be really careful about that. And it takes a little bit longer these days than it did 6 months or 12 months or 18 months ago. When we get to a GMP, Troy already talked about the CMGC format and all that, putting the contractor at risk. But the reason an owner would want a GMP from a contractor is because they contain, it has a guaranteed maximum price, it has a schedule, and it's got penalties for late delivery. So there will be pressure, quite frankly, on the two contractors, no doubt about it. But I think that all this comes together in the city's favor. It is unfortunate that we weren't able to get to a point sooner where 1401 Jones could be done. But quite frankly, the design work being done on 1401 Jones is going to result in most likely one heck of a branch, one that we can all be really proud of, and it will be able to provide the environment that's conducive to all the things we all look for the community to benefit from when using a facility like that. So hopefully that helps a little bit. I think that Lease will allow for extra time in the unfortunate circumstance that it may be necessary. The landlords have been very cooperative, and hopefully this helps.
Thank you. Well, that definitely helps, knowing that we already have the options in place without the requirement of leasing it for more than 6 months. I appreciate it, Mr. Nuttall. I have nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. Begley. You're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Troy, if you would, please.
Troy Anderson, 1819 Farnham.
If this is voted down, item 89 today, that means there's no temporary downtown library in between Clark and 1401 Jones, correct?
I will say yes, barring some other parliamentary procedure around prevailing reconsideration. You are correct.
Okay. And if this doesn't pass, where do all the materials, are they going to move them to 84th and Frederick then?
Yes.
Okay.
Everything will be relocated out of W. Dale Clark as it exists today. We will still continue, because we have other contract obligations, to be out of Dale Clark by the end of September. So yes, everything will have to be moved to 84th and Frederick until such time as 1401 Jones is complete.
Okay, thanks. Jay, real quick, if you would.
Jay Noddle, 2285 South 67th Street.
Jay, you mentioned that you confirmed there are two provisions of a 60-day extension in those lease agreements. Is there a time frame when it has to be exercised, the last 30 days, the last 60 days, or when does it need to be exercised?
I can't tell you off the top of my head. I've just been, as I've been listening, I've been working, emailing back and forth with the office.
Okay.
But generally, it's somewhere within 60 days of the expiration of the then current term.
Do we, I mean, timelines is what is kind of frustrating the council, things we can't control. Do you think, you've been around, that you'll have a pretty good idea, when we have a good idea on 1401 Jones, if it's going to be ready to go, is it March 1st? What's it, I don't know, the date?
The date now is March 1st.
Okay.
Open for business March 1st.
Do you, or maybe Troy will, and maybe there's not an answer, and I'm guessing there's not, but as we go through the next 6 months, when will we have a good idea that, hey, this thing at 1401 Jones is rolling, we're going to be cutting the ribbons here in the spring?
Well, your previous action, approving the GMP, will put all the wheels in motion that aren't already moving tomorrow, if not this afternoon. I think the only thing that we're at risk for, and it would hold true with this project and any other project, is if we get some materials delivery delay. And the materials will all be ordered. You approved a few things today with a variety of different actions. So as those proposals come in, either independent of the GMP or as part of the GMP, they roll up through the contractor, the final numbers are also going to have delivery schedules attached to them. So we're going to know every week. We will have a better idea and a higher level of certainty as to the final completion date.
Okay, thanks, Jay. Troy, one more, maybe two questions for you. In this process, you showed a map, you know, obviously I'm not putting you on the spot to pull it up, but you showed data of where people who visit the downtown branch come from. You remember that?
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of them were from South Omaha, immediately south of Leavenworth, south down in Little Bohemia, Columbus Park area. Is my recollection correct on that?
That's correct. In fact, the majority of users of Dale Clark were actually, yes, coming from the south and from the west. Really probably more like 24th, south of the railroad track, that area,
Okay.
yes.
And this item, some of these aren't easy, and this one isn't easy, but I guess in my mind, what I don't want is, and Councilman Palermo did a great job of laying out his points on this. What I don't want is, I'm going to support this today, but that's only because I don't want people in my district and others to be without a downtown branch. I don't know what this 1410 is going to look like. I know it's not going to be the Taj Mahal of libraries, but people need their libraries, and even if it's a temporary spot, to do the things you need a library to do to get job applications or reading materials or a quiet space. It's frustrating, and I know you probably understand that. I'm not going to speak for you, but those are the reason why I'm supporting this. It's you shrug your shoulders and you hope that this thing will be on March 1st. It'll be opening at 1401 Jones. And again, I didn't support that last year when this thing went down, but like Councilman Palermo, I'm a big fan of it now, and I want it to do well, and I want that ribbon to be cut and to be surprised how great of a library that is. But these are the tough days of going through the process and running into the realities that we do. But I don't have any other question. I appreciate your help me recollect those maps of where people that frequent that library that's close to 1401 Jones or 1410 Howard, that I don't want those constituents of mine and others to be without that, at least a temporary location until 1401 Jones hopefully is on or around March 1st. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Palermo.
Thank you, Mr. President. This will be my rebuttal, I guess. Let me make this clear. Troy, I'm just going to talk to you because you're there. Thanks for standing up. I don't want to pay any extra for a lease. This is already the backup to the backup. What I want to do is protect another move, another investment, another waste of city money if we had to move again. We're here because the experts, and don't take this the wrong way, but when I hear there's high level of conversations going on, they don't involve me. I don't know if they involve us. And I don't know how it gets any higher because we're the ones that vote on this. So these high level of conversations that are going on, according to this MOU that we're supposed to be a part of, sure, great. We got something a week ago and it was on the agenda a few days ago. But whoever's having these conversations, they're not inviting those who actually vote on this. So don't take any criticism when we hear high-level conversations are going on. Oh, but sorry, council members, you're not involved in them. Well, guess what? We're involved in this decision. So
So-
maybe we should start being involved in them conversations.
So to our defense, number one, I will say that I'm not a library expert. I feel like I've become a little bit of a library expert over the years, much like you all, right? I'm not a library expert. You know, the moment that we ascertained information that led us to believe that we were going to need an interim location, we went to work. The minute that we landed on a location, and when I say we went to work, we consulted industry experts, right? We consulted OPL Library Administration. What are those needs for an interim space? We consulted HDR and Margaret Sullivan Studios, who are industry experts. What are the program, what are the services that are needed? I'm not a library expert. I wouldn't be able to add any color to that conversation. Now, along the way, right, our design team, our consultants, our library administration, they went to work. They've been meeting weekly. I think Laura can maybe chime in, but the design team meets every Thursday, and they meet with library administration. There's folks from the library committee that are invited to those meetings. Those are a standing Thursday, and this is just one item of many that is discussed at those Thursday afternoon meetings, not just interim facility, but there was also, here's where we're at 1401 Jones, here's where we're at with 3020. And so this somewhat has been a conversation amongst, there have been council member representatives who've been involved in those meetings. The reason why there are other council members that have been invited is because they stand on the library committee, right? And so there have been folks that have been involved. And again, I look to the industry experts, right? I'm not a library designer. So I have to somewhat take the information that is provided to me and the recommendations that are provided me by industry experts on what the interim solutions are and what the interim solutions needs are. And then I try to package all of that information and try to get that to you all as quickly as possible, knowing that I try to get that information to you all as quickly as possible. Again, I will thank the clerk's office again for helping us make sure that this got on today's council agenda so that we could maintain that timeline. But as soon as we get information, we try to get that to the whole of the council as soon as possible.
Yep, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So I don't want to pay extra, let me make that clear, but I want protection because we're not involved in the high-level conversations. It's as simple as that. So if you had to think ahead, and again, we're only having this conversation because we didn't meet the first deadline by the experts at the high level that make these decisions. That's why we're here. So we've heard that the level of service will be, I don't remember the exact word, but okay.
Adequate.
Adequate, yeah. Okay, same thing in the dictionary. But what worries me is how many times we're going to see amendments on here for this adequate backup to the backup space we now have. And I know you can't answer because you would say, well, I don't know. Just like you don't know if 1401 Jones would be. But if you had to guess, how many amendments are we going to see for the backup to the backup for 1410 Howard on added city money we will have to add to this facility for something we didn't know about? Internet that we can't reach out and give to our constituents like we should give. All them unknowns, because we're not in the space. We're not there yet. We don't know. Does a wall have to be moved? Do you need an extra bathroom? Do you foresee amendments coming our way for more money for this backup to the backup?
I will answer, and I wanted to clarify, I made a comment to you earlier today about the fact that the lease agreement was the only money actually, the next item on the agenda is also associated with the interim space. So 27,000 for this item.
Yeah.
And the next item, the $10,000 to design the interim space. All of that work has been done. Now, the actual cost to get it done, I'm telling you that we are working feverishly to find folks that can help make this happen at no additional cost to the city. Now, if for whatever reason in the next couple of 2-3 weeks, so my answer to you is maybe one. And that one will be the actual cost to make the renovations to the facility. For example, are there renovations to the bathroom that need to be made? Are there, we need to put in the desk, right? We need to put in the counter. Somebody's gonna have to do that work. So we are working feverishly to try to find partners that can do that at no additional cost to the city, that it's a good program, it's a good effort. And we're having a lot of good, successful conversations in that regard. However, there still is an element of the fact that those improvements need to be made. So I would say, as it relates to the interim space, there may be one more item that comes before you, and those are construction costs and hiring a contractor to perform those obligations of actually doing the improvements to the space. Those costs we anticipate are going to be minimal. It may not even necessarily meet the threshold of $20,000 necessary. That's why we are working feverishly to try and find some folks. So as it stands today, our hope, our plan, 0. But all things being honest and forthright and forthcoming, there may be one that comes back to you all for the actual improvements, minimal costs. As you've heard, and as you've maybe seen, the space is already built out. It's already handicap accessible. It already has restrooms to a degree. But yes, there will be some things that need to be done to the space. We're working diligently with partners to see if we can get that done at no additional cost to the city. But however, to answer your question, as honestly and as openly as I can, maybe one.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because I'm not involved in these high-level conversations, nor have I heard this from the committee that folks serve on here on the council. So I just wouldn't know that information. But these are the questions I would have, and I'm glad you answered them. So I do have one more question. We did hear on the record, and this would probably be for Law, Mr. Kuzi. I know you're dying for me to ask you a question.
Matt Kuzi, Law Department. I'm with bated breath.
Awesome. So what we have in front of us is a contract for the 6-month lease. What we heard on the record is there's 260 days, which still doesn't get where I think we're going to need to be. But if this were approved today, would this have to come back in front of us again with the changes if there was a lease agreement change?
And by changes, do you mean if it goes beyond the 260-day extensions?
Well, I don't see the 260-day extensions. I just looked through all 16 pages, and I didn't see that in there.
I
did hear it
agree.
on the record, but I didn't see it.
I agree with you on that, and I believe that is going to be rectified by an action by Councilmember Harding. So I don't speak for him, but I believe that's going to be rectified. But if your question is if the 60-day extensions are included in the contract and going, if we needed to go beyond that, those 60 days, those 120 days, it's my belief that then we would have, if it went past that and we still needed this temporary location, that we would then have to renegotiate the contract if it goes beyond the 6 months plus the 120 days.
And then we would hope out of the goodness of their heart, we wouldn't have to pay another $4,500 deposit. I mean, all these added fees. And
well,
again,
we could go month to month on it.
Okay.
But the way I've looked at both of the contracts that are out there, if it went to a month-to-month system, it doesn't appear that the rent is necessarily guaranteed at the rate that it is now.
Yeah. But then we'd have to look at the additional costs of moving again to another location if Jones wasn't done. And I know folks are saying, why is he doing this? Because I have already lived through this. And I promise you, this is necessary. These are necessary questions because I'm not in the conversation, but I am today. And that's why I'm asking them. So did you say on the record, Mr. Kuzi, that there's going to be an amendment to what we're going to vote on?
I can get that addressed for you in a minute if you want to yield the floor to
Oh,
Mr.
no,
Harding.
no, I'm just getting started.
Well, I think it'll answer your question.
Okay. Okay, so again, I'm not against the bare services we have to provide. It's just the circus that surrounds the aggressiveness of these contracts that we see in front of us. It hasn't been this way. It shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't have to sit here and ask these questions. Not if we have committees, not if we have all these high-level conversations, not if the MOU says the trustees, the CEO, the owner rep, and the city should work together. We're not working together, and that's why I have to prolong this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, and I don't view you as prolonging this. I think you're asking good questions. I think all council members are asking good questions about this, and we should, especially when we have documents at the last minute. And I think that has been an issue here, and I think that's an issue that Mr. Harding is going to address here in a minute that will get to the very point you're making, which is a good one. So, Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to first ask if Councilmember Melton will remove her second from my motion.
Yes, I'm removing my second.
Okay, then, so I'll withdraw,
Withdrawing my second.
and I'll withdraw my motion with this explanation then too. So as I was going through the agreement again, I too noticed that maybe some of the things that were being said were different than all the words that in the version of the document that we had. There was a second document out there that included a paragraph on the options to extend, the two options to extend. We also, as has been noted, even without those options to extend, could have gone into holdover and continued rent on a month-to-month basis. So I would also tell you what if in just kind of industry standards on these types of transactions, if you got to a point, and I'm going to make a motion to make an amendment of the whole that does include the document with the two options to extend. If it got to that point, and this is to address your concern, which I think is a valid concern, is that if it got to the point, if you get into if we notice as a city that we need to extend for the first option, it's pretty standard, I would suggest, that at that point, we also then, if we think it's going to take more than a second option to extend, at that point, you're going to want to have the conversation with the landlord to have additional options to extend. And knowing the property and knowing the landlord, I don't see that would be an issue. But I want to make sure that we get the right language, the right document included in this. So I'm going to make a motion for the amendment of the whole that, and Kimberly, I don't know if you have it printed out yet or not, but it's the same document that we have here today, except instead of ending at paragraph 42, I believe, the 43rd paragraph is for the options to extend, which Mr. Noddle went through and gave us the particulars of. So that would be my motion, is to accept the amendment of the whole, which includes the language of the options to extend for the city.
Thank you. I think Mr. Kuzi would like to chime in
Before
there,
anybody seconds it, it should also be noted that if the amendment of the whole proposed by Councilmember Harding could remove section 14 from the contract dealing with insurance, the city is self-insured and we are not under an obligation to acquire a policy. So I wanted to interject that. I know a little bit rudely, but I wanted to interject that before Councilmember Harding's motion got a second. Thank you.
I appreciate that. So I will include in my motion the amendment of the whole to strike paragraph 14 and insert language in its place that says probably NA, or wait, no, it'll just put omitted on 14, and then add paragraph 43 which is the option, the two options to extend.
And can you read that paragraph for everyone? Is it?
I can, yeah. Just thank you for, here, I got to bring it up here. Bear with me. Thanks. I got it because I'll need it for my eyes. Okay. So it's paragraph 43 is titled Tenant Renewal Option. Tenant is hereby granted the option to renew this lease upon the same terms and conditions other than the rental increase identified in lease section 4B for 2 additional 2-month lease term by giving notice not less than 30 days prior to the expiration of the initial 6-month lease, provided this option may only be exercised if tenant is not in material default beyond any applicable cure period, parenthetically, for which default notice shall have been given, end parenthetical, at the time of the exercise of said option.
Paragraph B, though, if 4B also has that it's extended for 4,500.
Yeah, no, I know. So, yeah, so that's, no, no. Okay, that's the only addition of language to the agreement, and it then codifies and has in there are 2 options to extend that have been mentioned.
And that's your motion. Was there a second?
Second.
Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
I just wanted to echo on my colleagues' remarks, Mr. Palermo, on the fact that we are having these high-level conversations and not including everyone on the city council to these discussions, and therefore we're in this situation where we're having to discuss what we need to discuss here on the floor. These are conversations that should have been had before now, and that is a great concern, and we should be working together as a team, and it doesn't feel like it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kuzi, you're confident in the motion that was made that adequately addresses the document in question and therefore expresses the agreement that's actually on the table that includes the extensions?
Mancusi Law Department, I sure hope so. By omitting section 14 and including section 43, which apparently was the original contemplation of the contract, the motion and the second for the amendment of the whole is appropriate, and assuming the clerk concurs with me.
So I think I need a little something more than you than I hope so. You're saying the motion is appropriate, but is the content appropriate?
The content of the contract?
Yes.
Yes, that is appropriate. I thought you were asking me about whether the motion was appropriate, but certainly, yes, the content of the contract regarding the extension period is appropriate.
And that has been agreed to by the property owner in this case?
I would presume so, since this was negotiated with them. I can't explain how that portion of the contract didn't make it into the attachment to the council agenda item, but that appears to be what the original intent was, that the parties were to allow for those extensions, period of time.
Is what just happened is essentially the wrong document was attached to the city council agenda?
I cannot answer that. I would presume that it was an earlier draft that did not include that extension period. I will say that it is typical that those types of extension periods are common in lease agreements such as this nature. So I would assume that it was an oversight that a earlier draft or earlier version was what got put in rather than this final version that Mr. Harding has articulated in his motion.
I think it was an important catch the city council just made. Mr. Palermo, I think your questions were very worthy in that respect. But once again, does not inspire confidence in the process here. If there's no further lights, there is a motion and a second to approve the amendment, the amended contract, which is considered an amendment of the whole. Is that right? Okay. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-1. Item 40, a resolution to approve amendment number 1 to the professional services agreement with HDR Engineering, Inc. in the amount of $10,000 for additional architectural and engineering services for the design of an interim public library.
And this is item 90, right? Is that what you said? Or, no, it's 90, right?
Yes.
Okay. Public hearing and vote on item 90 is today. Proponents, please.
Questions?
Thank you. Any other proponents on number 90? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 90 is approved, 7-0. Item 91, a resolution to approve amendment number 1 to the owner's representative agreement with Noddle Development Company, LLC, in the amount of $150,000 for additional project management services associated with the W. Dale Clark Library relocation.
Public hearing and vote on number 91 is today. Proponents, please.
Troy Anderson, Mayor's Office, 1819 Farnham Street, here to answer any questions.
Other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
DeJuan Lamont Hayes, 1707 Park Avenue. This is hilarious, you guys. Okay. I've been thinking long and hard about what to say because it's clear there's no trust in this room. Like, really, Troy? Really, Troy? There's a reason you're leaving. Same for you, Jay. Like, what is this?
Let's address the council. Come on.
Okay, yeah, but like, he's on the agenda. Jay Noddle Companies is on the agenda.
And you can address us on that item, but not
Certainly.
not somebody in the audience.
We don't have to do this anymore, you guys. Hold on, no. Let me say this right. We don't have to do this anymore. We don't have to do this. We don't have to do this anymore. We don't have to do this. We don't have to fake and act like this is all okay, because it's not. And then keep going and keep kicking it down the line and say, maybe, just maybe, maybe if we vote it through, it'll be okay. It's not okay, you guys. And we don't have to do this. We can give each other the permission to not pretend like everything that's happening right now is totally right and just and fine. We're totally fine with just closing down a library for 6 months, but I guess we'll figure out a way to maybe put it, what? Come on. I've put myself through so much anxiety and craziness over this, going over the timeline, trying to write down all of them, how much money is being spent, over $600 million committed from the city through TIF and these agreements and that agreement. For what? For a tower in the sky that's supposed to promise a bright future for Omaha? And sometime eventually when we get around to it? Like, I've been coming here saying this, and I've had so many people be like, why do you even go? There's literally no point. Those people don't care. There's literally no point to this process. There are folks tweeting right now that are just like, why are we here? What's the point? Literally, we can go and spill our hearts out and be as honest and forthright and forthcoming as possible, and literally you'll just ignore us. There's no trust in this room, and you think you can continue to build a city? With what tissue? Literally, we can fall apart at any moment, and there's no connectivity or real communication to actually make sure that we could survive it. And we're talking about just giving money to all these people for what? So I'm here to give you permission. You don't have to pretend anymore. We don't have to pretend that this world is okay, that everything is just fine, that if we can just build ourselves out of this curse. We can just keep giving money to Jay Noddle, who really doesn't need it. Literally, the agreement is more than I'm not even gonna try to make logical sense of it, because it's not logical. And you know it's not logical. And thank you, Vinny, so much for asking the questions on the record and showing how they stumble and don't actually know anything about this and are making it up as we go. And why wouldn't you make sure that the agreement is on the thing that you're about to vote on? If that motion would have gone and voted, we wouldn't have that guarantee on the record. And we still don't have any guarantees. It's all a farce. We know it is. So, I mean, what's the point? Really? Give Jay his money. He's just gonna keep doing his thing. We should be grateful. We should be thankful. The philanthropists and whoever are just doing their thing. We should be grateful. And hey, you know, maybe you actually do believe you're doing the right thing. I'll give you that. We're all out here trying to make our lives mean something. And so the more we build, the more we make, the more we put our names on things, the more we hope it matters. That's why we run. That's why we show up places. That's why we do the jobs we do in hopes that maybe it has purpose. And that when we wake up every morning and we're really angry, that maybe if I go to the meeting and I say the right thing, then maybe it'll be okay. But we don't have to pretend anymore, you guys. I'm done pretending that this is right. And so, you know, what does it mean to really project management services for the relocation of the W. Dale Clark Library? We didn't even have to relocate the library, but we're doing it. For Mutual's tower that no one asked for, at least the people didn't ask for. I love Omaha, Nebraska. I have Nebraska tattooed on my side. It's right there. I'm proud to be from this place because it born and raised me and I've been able to benefit from it. And you all look down at your phones in a way because you don't want to be confronted by the truth. That what you're doing isn't right. And that when people are trying to come to say, hey, maybe think differently, maybe actually listen to the people who are here living our lives saying, your actions aren't that bright like you think they are. That you would actually have to change and realize that everything you're doing every day is a lie. And the things that you build on top of it are a lie. So we don't have to do this anymore. We don't have to do this. And I hope that tune stays in your head for the rest of your life. Because we don't have to do this anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Other opponents to 91 today? Please come down.
Anthony Cato Jr., 2596 Crown Point Avenue. I am not really an opponent or a proponent, but I've been sitting in the back watching this council. And a couple things come to mind. One, I think all of you have the right idea, in part representing the city. I've seen it from Ms. Milton, Mr. Bagley, and even lately, Mr. Palermo. The reason why I'm here today is I'm troubled because I've heard some people say on this council, we have constituents and we listen to the public. I really want to question that right now. Jay Noddle has done some phenomenal things in the city, and he probably will continue to do some phenomenal things. But I have a couple eyesores, and one of them is in Mr. Peter Festerson's district, 72nd and Dodge, where you're talking about relocating a new library. But I'm also looking at North Omaha. I'm also looking at South Omaha, pockets of this city that are in dismal, almost warlike states of distress. And yet we are catering to big corporations like Mutual of Omaha with deep pockets, Creighton University, and others. And I know it's not every member on this board was here, but there was a couple that were here that closed some major streets in North Omaha needlessly, saying it was going to benefit the community. I can tell you, most people in North Omaha that can afford transportation or gets rides, they go all over this city in every one of your districts. And one of the things they don't want to hear is, I don't want to hear of a major project that's going to benefit one particular district or another. I want to see it uniform. I remember when Ms. Milton was adamantly in favor of the grocery store off of 168th and West Center Road. What happened to it today? Didn't come to fruition. And the board approved it, not thinking of how it impacted the constituents. I'm talking about behind Baker's, where the hotel they was complaining. Fresh Time. And all of them are gone now. All gone. But one of the things is they wanted to be right behind another major business. We have to demand, I'm demanding you as a board to do better in some of these decisions and think of the strategic aspects, not the consumer, not because of what big business wants, because Creighton should have never closed Burt Street, North 24th for a period of time. California, making one-way different buildings. I know that the OHA building is no longer in existence. And if it wouldn't have been for the Buffett family, you probably would not have the stadium behind Central High School because Creighton wanted it too. We have done so many things in this city that have not really given credit to the taxpayers. Are we listening? I remember we had a vote in this city not more than 3 years ago. We were told we don't want a trail, we don't want a trolley car between Harney and Dodge. But yet and still, we're now back before it because Mutual wants it. But Mutual tore down a historic building at 30th and Turner and Farnham Drive and made an empty lot. When are we gonna stop? We can't just do what everybody else wants. We have to take it in consideration what's best for the city. And most of you do hard work for the city. But Mr. Festerson, I'm still looking at 72nd and Dodge. I'm looking at the Crossroads project. It's been on, what, 10 years almost now? And nothing's really being done. We have to stop. At some point, the constituents are going to get sick and tired of being told, we're going to get this. We're going to see results. We're going to see the fruition. My question to you as a board, when is that going to be? Now, anything past 132nd, Jay Noddle is doing a phenomenal job. Boys Town area is coming along rapidly. UNMC, rapidly. But I still see pockets in South Omaha. I go out there a lot, Mr. Palermo. I like Nettie's. Ms. Bagleson, I'm out in your neighborhood. I see a lot of growth, but don't see it in north, downtown, central, pockets surrounding, minus the old market area. I see war zones. I see empty lots. And you talk about affordable housing, and we have a land bank program, demand some of these people build there. You can demand it or you can require it. It's a simple process.
So I'm giving you some leeway because you've been with us all day, but I do want you to summarize and talk to the agenda item, which is
The general item is this. Mr. Noddle,
pertaining to libraries.
Mr. Noddle will do a phenomenal job on that project. But now I'm going to ask you to require him to do some other projects in those desolated areas and make it a requirement. Make it a responsibility as a citizen, as a constituent, and as an employee of this city council that those areas don't keep going by the wayside. Thank you.
Thank you. Other opponents to number 91.
Luis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue. I want to provide a suggestion for project management on other developments for the city. You can have a committee of the whole, like an ad hoc committee, to be in place to get reports from your project manager. Committee of the whole would have all 7 council members, or you can have a subcommittee of the Ordinance committee, subcommittee of more than 3 members. You can have 7 members on this subcommittee. Thank you.
Thank you. Other opponents to number 91.
Hello, my name is Decker Gabriel Woods. I live at 3010 Lincoln Boulevard. So I want to second the comments of the first two opponents of this item. And then all I really want to say is like, every time I turn around, like more money is being spent on this project that everybody is telling y'all we don't want. And what it is to destroy a public resource and build a tower for a big business. Like, and that's where our money is going. It's just like I'm not even gonna speak too long because y'all have heard this 1,000 times before. But it's like, why are we spending so much money on this project when there are so many other needs, as the gentleman over there said earlier? Like, it's just, that's all. That's all. Just that's it.
Thank you. Other opponents to number 91? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Anderson can come up, please. Just reading through it, if somebody's reading through it, obviously we understand the conversations, but it's really brief. It's about performing a service out of, obviously, the money being paid out of the general fund, which is really nice, not the library fund. But tell me exactly what this agreement will do for the city of Omaha.
So Troy Anderson, 1819 Farnham Street. So this agreement authorizes Noddle companies, not simply J Noddle, but the company that is. There's a handful of folks over there that are working diligent. I'll throw out the name Tarnikitter right now. I tell you what, this lady over is one of the most exceptional women I've ever worked with. This girl wakes up every day, all day, every day, eats, sleeps, breathes. W. Dale Clark Library relocation. That's my thanks to Tarnikitter for all of that she has done up until this point. This agreement would extend the contract agreement and services through the end of February. So right now, when we originally entered into the agreement way back in February, this has been sort of talked about ad nauseum of, we thought we were going to be done by October. That was the original plan, right? So throughout the process, we've come to the realization that we're obviously not going to be done by end of October. It's now going to be end of February. So this allows the owner's rep to stay on as the owner's rep, to continue to coordinate with both general contractors, to continue to coordinate with the design team, to continue to coordinate with our consultants, our other professional consultants, to continue to coordinate with city staff, obtaining the necessary permits, make sure that there's a conduit for the entire construction process, from permitting to inspections to completion. This allows the owner's rep to stay on through the end of the project.
So the original agreement was for $390,000 for 243 calendar days.
That sounds about right.
And then this one is for $150,000 for an additional 182 calendar days. I remember the original contract, and I believe Noddle Companies was the only bidder.
That's
what you
correct.
remember? So I assume we wouldn't find another one. And I do understand the value in how this works. It's just the process has brought us to this point. So not necessarily against it. I just wanted people to hear what the money
Sure.
is being
Yep.
spent for. Do you anticipate more calendar days needed or more money to be spent?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Noddle, if I could, please. Hi.
J. Noddle, 2285 South 67th Street.
Thank you. Mr. Noddle, you have been aware of my concern regarding the bus route, providing transportation to North Omaha. There were individuals that did receive service at the Dale Clark Library in North Omaha, outside of the downtown area. Areas like 30th and Lake, areas like 40th and Pratt, oftentimes those individuals got on the bus and were serviced by the Dale Clark Library. So when we talk about bus route, we talk about a variety of bus schedules that would provide those services because of the different locations that those individuals would be. Again, from the onset, I've asked Metro Area Transit. They agreed to look at evaluating the frequency of the bus route for providing services to those who were serviced by the Dale Clark, and today that information has not been provided. As the owner's rep, can you help me understand why that has gone on death's doors and is still no information provided? And I don't believe that Metro Area Transit plans on giving any information to change a bus route or to do anything regarding this request. I don't believe that they understand the magnitude of this poor public transportation for this particular area of the city. This move of the Dale Clark Library was monumental to the people in this area where bus transportation is lacking and has been lacking for decades. Yes, I'm passionate about this because I talked about it from the onset when the first discussion took place regarding the library being relocated. There were conversations. I remember Mr. Anderson talking about, I'm sure that Metro Area Transit will evaluate that and will look at alternative scheduling and things of that nature. That still has not happened. And it saddens me that not only are we moving into a space of a temporary move and then a perhaps final move, I don't believe, based upon the narratives that I've had with Metro Area Transit, that it's going to happen, that they are going to look at the feasibility of looking at alternate routes. I'm bringing this to your attention because you're the owner rep, and I believe you may have some sway in getting this information.
Well, I appreciate that. Up until now, it hasn't been communicating with the transit authority or transit agency hasn't been something that we were tasked with doing as an owner's rep. It's not part of our scope of work. However, I'm more than happy to work with Mr. Anderson and to talk to the folks at the transit agency, see where they are with whatever work and studies they've been doing. It was my belief and understanding that they were going to look carefully at what kind of service would be able to be provided for the permanent location. And so I'm more than happy to reach out and do that. I think you all know I'll do anything within reason to see if we can help the cause and for the good of the cause. So I'm happy to do that. As to why there hasn't been something communicated from them to anyone, I don't know. But I'm happy to look into it, and we'll do it right away. We'll get back to you as soon as we can.
So just so we're clear, I'm looking for a feasible schedule for both locations.
Well, I understand that.
Okay.
All I can promise you is that I will reach out. We'll gather whatever information they're willing to share or provide, and we'll get it communicated to you. You have my word, we'll do that. The information they provide and the timeliness of providing that information is up to them, but I don't think it's unreasonable to reach out and ask them, where they are.
Because as it stands now, they have been somewhat reluctant in doing the will of this city council when they were asked from the onset to look at the feasibility of those bus routes and bumping them up so that they could be more conducive for constituents in the areas in which this Dale Clark Library provided a service to. And again, I would like it to go on record that the Dale Clark Library did not just service the downtown residents. It serviced other areas of North Omaha in which I've already outlined where those locations are.
I appreciate all that, and you have my word that I will reach out to them. I will ask the questions, and whatever information they're willing to provide, we'll make sure it gets communicated to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. No further lights. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
And 91 is approved, 7-0. Non-action items, items 50 through 82, did not require public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on a future agenda for public hearing and or vote. The reason for non-action is noted after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on agenda for consideration.
Second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Meeting is adjourned at 5:21.